Good morning. We'll call to order the Board of Mason County Commissioners regular meeting for July 18th. At this time, we'll begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. Chief Burbidge, if you'd please lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everybody. Appreciate you being here with us this morning. If the clerk would please begin by taking roll.
Commissioner District 1, Randy Netherland.
I'm here.
Commissioner District 2, Kevin Schutte.
Here.
Commissioner District 3, Terry Drexler.
Here.
Okay, moves us to item number 4, correspondence and organizational business. Clerk, if you'd please report the correspondence.
The Mason County Economic Development Council sent their second quarter report, and Mason Web TV sent in commission meeting statistics for second quarter 2017 as of July 1st.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
there's one other piece of correspondence I'd like to report. We received, July 11th, the county commissioners received a letter from the Washington State Department of Transportation in reference to the Lynch Road Highway 101 interchange. As you may or may not know, there was money appropriated in the legislature quite a few years ago to make that a more safe interchange at the at-grade crossing. There was a lot of public input, et cetera, regarding what would be the best alternative. And the new way of choosing the design of Washington State Department of Transportation owned facilities is that there is a review of what is the best, most value you can get and still try to achieve what you want. And the Washington State Department of Transportation determined that a at-grade crossing would remain, but the option of having an acceleration lane as you turn south from Lynch Road on Highway 101 to allow the trucks an opportunity to make that turn and accelerate in a safe manner, and then an exit coming off Fredson Road, and then having a lateral road along Brewer Road to enter onto Lynch Road coming from the south or from the north. So it's the Brewer Road acceleration lane option that Department of Transportation will start designing, and then they hope to have the construction start in, I believe, 2018.
Very good, thank you. Moves us to item number 4.2. We have a news release on the Lewis Mason Thurston Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council.
The Mason County is seeking applicants to fill 4 positions on the Lewis Mason Thurston Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council. This Lewis Mason Thurston Area Agency on Aging is a local governmental agency that provides home and community services for seniors and adults with disabilities to help them remain living in their own homes. The Advisory Council takes recommendations to the governing board and staff. Members serve a 2-year term and meet the first Wednesday of the month at the Area Agency on Aging office at 2404 Heritage Court Southwest in Olympia, approximately 9:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. Members are not paid, however, automobile mileage is covered. The website address is lmtaaa.org. We invite interested persons to apply for this commission by completing an advisory board form that can be downloaded from the Mason County website. Forms and brochure tabs is where you would go when you click on the Commissioner's Department, or by calling the Commissioner's office at 427-9670 extension 419, or from Belfair 275-4467 extension 419.
Thank you. Item 4.3, a news release for the Housing Authority. Housing Authority of Mason County Board of Commissioners opening. Mason County is seeking applicants to fill positions on the Housing Authority of Mason County Board of Commissioners. The Housing Authority is the owner, manager of Pine Garden Apartments, Goldsboro Cove Apartments, Fairmont Cove Apartments, and the Neelan Park Apartments. The Mason County Housing Authority is a 5-member board. The board typically meets monthly on the first Wednesday at 9 a.m., with special meetings scheduled as necessary. The time commitment is approximately 2 to 3 hours per month. Appointed commissioners normally serve a 5-year term. The open positions will expire in January of 2022. Interested persons are encouraged to apply for this board by completing an advisory board application form that can be downloaded from our website, www.co.mason.wa.us, or by calling the Commissioner's office at 427-9670, extension 419, or 275-4467, extension 419, or 482-5269, extension 419. Applications to serve on the board are being accepted until filled and should be submitted to the Mason County Commissioners, 411 North 5th Street, Shelton, Washington, 98584. If there are questions about this board, please contact the Commissioner's office at 427-9670, extension 419. Takes us to item 4.4. We have an announcement of open house for accessibility voting. Is our auditor here? Oh, very good in the back.
Good morning.
Morning.
This week is Get Out the Disability Vote, which happens to coincide with the National Disability Voter Registration Week. So in celebration, our office is having an open house today from 10 o'clock until 1 o'clock in our election processing room, which is right in the back, right behind this room. We set up a mock election on our AVU, which is an electronic voting device that is equipped with technology that allows voters with vision, with mobility and hearing issues to vote privately and independently. So I'd like to invite anybody to stop on by, try out the machine. We'll also be registering people to vote and sharing ideas on other improvements that we've made with voters to help with the election process for people with disabilities. I'm hopeful that the meeting will be over by that time, so please, I invite you, take advantage of this opportunity. Anybody can vote on this machine. Just stop on by and give it a try. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And item 4.5, we have a staff recognition for Carol Spalding. Dave.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's my pleasure to introduce Carol Spalding. She retires from the Environmental Health Section of Mason County Community Services on Monday, July 31st, 2017. Carol's been with Mason County Health since March 1st of 1990. She set up the water lab and worked in nearly every program over the years. She was our lab manager until we had to close operation in 2009 due to budgetary constraints. Most recently, she performed the task for the Group A drinking water sanitary survey program and answered questions generated when on-site sewage systems reminders went out. Carol worked in the vector program, following up on animal bites, sending bats and dog heads in for rabies testing, and processing birds to be tested for West Nile virus. Carol was the water recreation program staff for many years, inspecting swimming pools and hot tubs. Every other Monday, rain or shine, she collected mussels at Gerald's Cove Marina as part of the biotoxins testing program for the state of Washington Department of Health Shellfish Program. Carol is a registered sanitarian with the Washington State Board of Registered Sanitarians and a member of the Thurston County Medical Reserve Corps. She's an avid gardener and shared plants with us as she thinned out her beds. Carol is a wonderful baker and made sure everyone had, from the Environmental Health section, had their cake on their birthday. We will miss her big heart and can-do attitude. Her work ethic is second to none. Best wishes from your Mason County family as you start the next chapter of your life. With your husband, Jim, congratulations, and please accept this award. It's a clock engraved, and thank you for your many years of service. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been fun. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Best wishes on a good retirement.
They can't hear out in the lobby. Can you turn up the lobby? This one? I believe so. Okay.
26?
Sorry, thank you.
Not at all.
Okay, that takes us to item number 5 on today's agenda, which is our open forum for citizen input. It's an opportunity for members of the public to come forward and address the commission on items that are not on today's agenda. Again, that's for items that are not on today's agenda, so if you have comments on any of the public hearing related topics that we're going to be hearing later this morning, there's a separate time for that. But this is an opportunity to come forward and address the commission on anything not on today's agenda. Conley, and then I see Tom's hand out there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Conley Watson, and I appeared before you last week to give you a copy of the RCW 3632-120. And I understand that there is a new one coming up which will impact the sheriff and the police of Shelton and the highway patrol. It's due on Sunday, as I understand, on the cell phone. You are no longer allowed to talk on your cell phone while driving. Thank you.
Conley, why'd you point at the millennial? When you said that, you pointed at the young guy about the texting and driving. Thank you. Tom.
Thank you, Commissioners. Tom Davis. I'm a resident of District 2. If I might, I'd like to give you just some documents here so we're all on the same page. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to talk to you about a non-budget issue, which should be welcome. But unfortunately, we seem to have the same problems with the non-budget issues as we have with the budget issues. In particular, I'm talking about the 0.1% funding for therapeutic courts, mental health, and substance abuse. We had a meeting on this, and I appreciate the time that the Commission gave us yesterday morning for to make our pitch to retain our caseworker for the veterans. As you know, that contract expired at the end of June, and the ripple effect has put us at pretty much of a standstill in terms of being able to give veterans the services that they need. So there were a lot of conversation happened during that time, but the crux of it was that there was only so much money in that particular fund that could be allocated for contracts. So that kind of piqued my interest, because there seems to be a lot of money in the fund, or at least a lot of money in the revenues as we open up, going back all the way to 2016, all the way to 2012, actually. It used to be, and if you take a look at the RCWs that administer to this particular fund, especially RCW 7511, on the third page, and I've outlined paragraph 6, that fund is supposed to be, or recommended that the fund would be administered by the County Board of Commissioners through the Mason County Public Health Department, and the Health Department, with the help of a Citizens Advisory Committee appointed by the Board of Mason County Commissioners, is hereby directed to prepare a 5-year plan, an annual budget, and an annual report showing the successes and failures of the program. Well, the prior Director of Public Health, this is what she put out. And so I only have a couple of copies, but I think maybe, Mr. Chair, you might be the only one maybe hasn't seen that. But in it, all the costs are segregated out. Everyone knows where the money went. And that's important, because ever since then, ever since the generation of this last report, no one knows where the money goes. I mean, it's the people who have an interest in this sort of thing and whose funding depends on these resources doesn't know where the money's going. Now, just to jump to a couple of years ahead, the fund balance in 2015 was $932,508. And if you turn to the last page of the two documents that I gave you, you'll notice that in your own budget report for 2016, the fund balance for the 0.1% fund was looks like $1,622,000. I don't know what it is in 2017 because we just weren't privy to that information, but it's a lot of money. However, there's only seems to be $250,000 of that amount of money that is allocated to direct contract services. And that really was the reason that we put this whole fund together. And it was, as I told you before, quite frankly, it was a complete uphill battle. We didn't get much support. When you're trying to tax people, even 1/10 of 1% increase on a sales tax, you meet a lot of resistance. But we got it through. All the people now who are being funded by this, or many of the people who didn't participate in this process. So when the money got on the table, the parade started. And now all sorts of salaries are being augmented through this fund that I don't think were intended. The process itself has been manipulated to what I believe is outside the reason that it was created. And one of the reasons that happened is we used to have a committee that made recommendations of how these funds was allocated directly to the commissioners. And that committee was dissolved. And from that point on, those monies disappeared into the financial ether of Mason County finances. No one knows what happened, but it's a lot of money. And the fact that we're losing a very, very good caseworker and a very culturally competent caseworker for the difference between, well, for the amount of $12,000 is just absurd. We save the county much, much more than that in the fact that we mentor people, we keep people out of jail, we keep them from reoffending. We, as I said, it's $85 and change to keep one person in jail for one day into custody. We've saved tens of thousands of dollars in county costs. We are a viable, active organization that is dead in the water as of the end of June for no tenable reason. And so I implore you to revisit this. Take another look at this. Don't stand on procedure. Stand on practicality. We have a whole bunch of people working for nothing to do the right thing, and we're looking for you to do the right thing. Cough up the extra $12,000, give us our caseworker back, and we'll continue to work the way we've been working for 4 years. Because right now, all those relationships we built, all the foundation we built, gone, just like that. I don't think it was well thought out. So I'd appreciate it if you would revisit this and let us get back to doing what we do. Thank you.
Tom, just so you know, the savings is now $107 a day.
I'm sorry?
The savings would be now $107 a day. That's the cost now for incarceration in Mason County.
So it went up since last year. And
Yeah,
the average jail stay is 19 days. So there's a lot of money on the table, and it's our intention to save the county money through reducing recidivism and cutting costs. And we'd like your help in doing that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
Good morning. I'm Herb Gerhardt from Belfair. You don't see me here very often. I do appreciate that Mason Web TV broadcasts this. I do watch every single meeting, so rest assured that I'm keeping an eye on things. The reason I'm here today is at the last meeting, there were public comments made, and I made a comment, I believe it was a couple of years ago at the Belfair meeting about our commissioners micromanaging the county and stuff. And boy, I mean, the comments that came back to Mr., I believe it was Wood, were, if that wasn't micromanagement, it certainly was at its finest. I just couldn't believe it. And I would recommend that, Mr. Chair, if there's a dialogue going on, put your gavel down and stop it. I don't think it's appropriate in a meeting. It can be done later. The normal comment reply should be from the commissioners. Thank you very much for your comments. And that's it for my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else? Please.
My name is Pat Burke. I own a company called American Cushion Industries up on Golden Pheasant Road. And I'm here today basically in response to what I read in the newspaper about our budget problem here in Mason County. I've been living here for 26 years, and so
Sir?
I know what's going on. I mean,
I'm sorry, is this related to the budget reduction?
This is related to the budget issue.
Okay.
Am I allowed to speak briefly about that?
At 9, when we move into the public hearing on the budget, that would be the appropriate time
Okay,
to
then
comment on the
I'll
budget.
stay for that then, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any other citizens on issues not on today's agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 6, which is the adoption of today's agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move the adoption of the agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt today's agenda as presented. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Item number 7, approval of minutes. We have no minutes to approve today, so we'll move to item number 8 on today's agenda, which is the approval of our action agenda. At this time, the commissioners will read through the items on today's action agenda, and once that is read through, commissioners or a citizen will have the opportunity to remove an item for a separate vote or discussion. And we'll just read through that in a second here.
Mr. Chair, there's been a request for a short break so that people can move to the Board of Equalization
Okay.
off.
Building 9. We have the video up there and also sound. So
Okay.
there's a lot of people out there.
Sure, absolutely.
It's not
So,
working.
okay. So let's recess for 5 minutes. Okay. So we will be on recess for 5 minutes as people move over next door. Well, okay, we'll come back to order here and pick up where we left off. So that we were at item number 8, as I was saying, we will read through the items on today's action agenda. Once the commission reads through the items on today's action agenda, a member of the public or a commissioner can remove an item for a separate discussion and vote. If Commissioner Drexler would please read items 8.1 through 8.4, Commissioner Netherland 8.5 through 8.9, and then I will take 8.10 through 8.12.
Mr. Chair, item 8.1, approval of the interlocal agreement with Mason Transit Authority, which would authorize the Public Works Department to provide vehicle, road, or site maintenance, engineering, survey, GIS, emergency assistance, sign fabrication, fueling, and materials supply. 8.2, approval to authorize Public Works to hire correct equipment for installation of the decant valves and actuators for North Bay SBR Basins 1 and 2 in the amount of $6,781.25. 8.3, approval of contract amendment number 2 with Blue Collar Agency authorizing an additional $16,850 in lodging tax funding for the Wildside Explorer Series, quote, Fall Family Getaway, unquote, for Mason County tourism promotion purposes. 8.4, approval of county program agreement, evidence-based expansion SFY 18 through 19, number 1763-3770, between Mason County and the State of Washington Department of Social and Health Services.
Mr. Chairman, item 8.5 reads, approval of the county program agreement number 1763-96306 between Mason County and the State of Washington Department of Social and Health Services. Item number 8.6, approval of a resolution stating that Mason County will not extend the time frame for property tax refunds for manifest error corrections beyond the 3-year statute of limitations for administrative refunds. Item number 8.7, approval of the ordinance combining the current use timber land classification with the designated forest land program. Item number 8.8, approval to promote Pat Lewis from Deputy Public Defender 1 to Deputy Public Defender 2 with a salary increase of $21,280. This promotion eliminates the need to take cases into hourly status and allows the elimination of a contraction position in Superior Court. Item number 8.9, approval to terminate the felony indigent defense contract with the law offices of F. McNamara, Jardine and Associates, LLC, for budgetary reasons. This approval is only recommended in conjunction with the promotion of Pat Lewis into the felony defenses.
Item 8.10, approval of warrants. Claims Clearing Fund warrant numbers 804-9414-804-9852 in the amount of $1,137,097.29. Direct Deposit Fund warrant numbers 42226 through 42625 in the amount of $635,098.69. And the Salary Clearing Fund warrant numbers 7002894 through 7002934 in the amount of $927,766.81 for a total of $2,699,962.79. Item 8.11, approval of the field use agreement with Mason County Youth Baseball Association for the Pee Wee Reese 12U World Series event and approval to waive the $1,750 field use fee. Item 8.12, approval to transfer $65,000 from salaries and benefits to operating expenses in the Office of Public Defense for the 2017 budget. This time, would a commissioner or a citizen like an item removed for a separate voted discussion? I am going to ask that we remove item 8.3 and item 8.11 for a separate discussion and vote.
Mr. Chair, I move the approval of the action agenda, items 8.1 through 8.12, except removing 8.3 and 8.11.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the items on items 8.1 through 8.12 on today's action agenda, with the exception of 8.3 and 8.11. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Takes us to item 8.3, the approval of contract amendment number 2 with Blue Collar Agency, authorizing an additional $16,850 in lodging tax funding for the Wild Side Explore Series Fall Family Getaway for Mason County tourism promotion purposes.
I'd be happy to present the item.
Please.
I serve as the mandated chair on the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, so I can speak to this item. Mason County enters into a 2-year contract with a successful bidder for tourism, general tourism promotion. For the last, I believe, 4 years, we've had that contract with Blue Collar Agency. Blue Collar has done what I believe is, and now I'm going to be doing an editorial, a phenomenal job of branding Mason County as the wild side of Washington, with a target market of the millennial age group in the greater Puget Sound area, and then going down through the Portland area, using mostly social media and internet type advertising. And that is a very distinct decision made to take the few little dollars we have in lodging tax monies and make it go as far as we can. This particular proposal was to create a new video series that targets families. Up to this point, our advertising had been targeting young professionals, and we had not done any family promotions. And so this particular one targets the families. Right now, we in the next week, the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee will be reviewing new proposals for this general tourism advertising for Mason County, and there's a very good chance that we potentially wouldn't have the same contract. Not very good. There's a chance we wouldn't have the same contractor, and the video series would provide, in my mind, additional collateral for anybody that might get the contract should we move on to a different contractor, to be able to continue to start and to continue to promote families. And I'm going into the part of, I apologize, into discussion. So in the contract is a 10% clause for additional work that was unanticipated at the time the contract was first signed, and so the monies are within that 10%. And we do have Vince Reddy here from Blue Collar, if anybody would like to hear from him.
Okay, Commissioner, any? Okay, so I will be voting no on this today. It's not a no vote against the concept of doing a video that would attract, that would target families. Not the case at all. I think at this point, this money is better left in reserve, in particular as we go out for RFP and we potentially vet new providers and new ideas. And so in that regard, I would prefer the money stay in reserve, and so that's the reason for my no vote today. Any additional discussion?
Well, I'd already, probably already done my piece, but I'm a yes vote, because again, it's for the collateral. Our RFP specifically stated, Blue Collar Agency is based out of Oregon, and our RFP request for proposals did ask that there be a strong Mason County presence, so there's a chance that additional monies in the new contract would need to pay for a staff person, and we may not have as many dollars available for the collateral, for the film footage, et cetera, that's used for the advertising. And so I believe that we need this collateral if we're going to then expand our tourism market to families.
Mr. Chairman, is there an actual motion on the floor? Because I know we had discussion, but
so
I
I
don't
would-
know if there was actually a motion.
I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the contract amendment number 2 with Blue Collar Agency, authorizing an additional $16,850 in lodging tax funding for the Wildside Explorer Series Fall Family Getaway for Mason County tourism promotion purposes.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve contract amendment number 2 with Blue Collar Agency, authorizing an additional $16,850 in lodging tax funding for the Wildside Explorer Series Fall Family Getaway for Mason County tourism promotion purposes. Commissioner, did you have any?
Yes. I'll be voting in favor of it. The reason being, first of all, just so the folks know, especially in these times where we're talking budget, this is specific money that has to stay in this specific pot, used for specific purposes. It comes from your lodging tax when somebody spends the night someplace, and it's supposed to be used for heads and beds. That's all this money can go out for. There's a committee that actually looks over these things, looks over these proposals, and this committee is made up equally of people who spend the money and people who bring the money in, and they come up with their ideas, what they think best how to spend that money. And with their recommendation, and those that I've talked to on the committee, that's why I'll be voting in favor of it today, because that is what they think the best use of that money today is. And again, it is nice to have, as the commissioner pointed out, to be able to have that for future use, because anything we give them is our permission, or everything we give them, we actually own. It goes with this whether we have another contract with them or not. It becomes our property.
Okay. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Takes us to item 8.11, the approval of the field use agreement with Mason County Youth Baseball Association for the Pee Wee Reese 12U World Series event, and approval to waive the $1,750 field use fee. Just by way of information, this is, we've been working with the folks from the Mason County Youth Baseball Association who have brought the Pee Wee Reese World Series event to Shelton later this month, and have gone through a number of discussions with them about what the county is willing and able to provide for the event. As this kind of came forward, this was the field reservation fees that we would charge for a regular tournament to use the MCRA fields up off Johns Prairie, and there was a lot of discussion, and I think, about waiving the fees and those kinds of things, and so that is what this item is. At this point, I would entertain a motion.
Well,
We're gonna have to.
Jeff Rabel present?
Is he here?
Yeah, he was here somewhere. Here he comes.
There he is.
I heard my name out there. You have questions? Oh,
You want to explain who's coming, what's happening?
okay. Basically, we have the Pee Wee Reese 12U World Series tournament coming to Shelton. You may have heard about it, you may have not. It's a big event. We have 16 teams coming from all around the nation. One team from New York, one from Connecticut,
another one from Arizona, one from New Mexico, one from Montana, one from Texas, one from Oregon, one from Iowa, 2 from Illinois, 2 from California, 2 from Canada, and 2 from Washington State. So we've got a lot of people coming to town, and basically at the height of our season. And I think if we're talking tourism, I think this is going to be a good one. A lot of people exploring our area for one whole week. It's June 30th through August 6th, and right up here at our MCRA. Oh, I'm sorry, July 30th through August 6th. Whoa, that would have been a long one.
Very good, thank you, Joe.
Anything else?
Any questions? Thank you. Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve a field use agreement with the Mason County Youth Baseball Association for the Pee Wee Reese 12 and Under World Series event, and approval to waive the $1,750 field use fee.
I'll second.
It's moved and seconded that we approve the field use agreement with Mason County Youth Baseball Association for the Pee Wee Reese 12U World Series event, and approval to waive the $1,750 field use fee. Is there any additional discussion?
Yes. I'll be voting in favor for many different reasons. One, as you heard, it brings a lot of people into our community. But more than that, in the very beginning, when this group came and spoke with us, they asked for a lot to bring this year, and we said no. They wanted $50,000 from us and a bunch of other concessions in order to bring it here. But the one thing that we all, when we were discussing, that we would be interested in doing would be donating the field to them, basically. So after all this time and everything's finally put together, this comes before us with the concept of what are we going to do? Will we still donate the field to them? To make it clear, the staff is already there and nobody's booked up this time. So it's not an extra cost of this amount of money. This is what a gift that it would be given to them in order to bring all those families and all those people here to spend their money in our community. We could sure use that money. I'm sure we all agree we need every dime we can get right now. So again, as I'm explaining, I want to explain this is not new money going out. This is just the acceptance of letting them have that field at that benefit without charging them.
Any additional discussion? No. Okay. So I, again, will be voting no on this, and this is not an indication of my support or my excitement over this event coming to Shelton. I think that it's a wonderful opportunity for our community to highlight not just youth sports and youth baseball in particular, but also to highlight the amount of work that has gone into improving MCRA. I think those are wonderful things. However, given the budget situation that we're in, and given the direct impact that we'll be hearing about a little bit later this morning to support services and those reductions to our budget, and by virtue of that, parks, I think at this point we can ask for a nominal fee, which has already been reduced over earlier projections. And so for that reason, I'll be voting no on this today. Any additional discussion from the commission? Hearing none. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll be voting yes in that it is a small price to pay for the additional monies that'll come in. And if it's an effort to try to bring this permanently to Mason County, it's not as much as we would like to be able to support this event, but it's what we can do, and hopefully it'll be that much that can help us have this event come year after year after year.
Very good, thank you. Okay, at this time I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay, and the motion carries. Okay, that takes us to item number 9 on our agenda this morning, which is an opportunity for department heads and elected officials to come forward and address the commission. Are there any department heads or elected officials that would like to? Is it budget related?
Budget related.
Would you mind
Waiting.
for the public?
I figured you'd tell me the right
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. I think it would be best if we kept all the budget comments and okay. Okay, so seeing nobody else coming forward, we'll move on to item number 10, which is our public hearings. Item 10.1, public hearing to consider budget revisions and reductions to the 2017 budget as follows. Current expense fund reductions, revisions not to exceed a reduction of $2.1 million. Public Health Fund reduction revisions not to exceed a reduction of $31,000, and information technology reductions and revisions not to exceed a reduction of $48,900. This time I'd invite staff forward to brief.
Good morning, Jennifer Sleva, Budget Manager. As we briefed yesterday, we have had some changes and amendments to what had been submitted by departments. Originally, the reduction requests had been turned in or requested by departments as follows. WSU at $21,941. Assessor's Office at $97,849. Auditor's Office $101,491. Support Services $318,552. Clerk's Office $66,769. District Court $58,461. Juvenile $121,489. Prosecutor's Office $116,192. Excuse me, Coroner's Office $22,683. Sheriff's Office $898,384. Indigent Defense $62,696. Superior Court $66,800. Treasurer's Office $60,954. And Health Transfer $30,718. Amounts submitted by the departments, which include changes that were made this morning by the Sheriff's Office, include WSU at $20,941. Assessor's Office, $97,849. Auditor's Office, $101,491. Support Services, $360,176. Clerk's Office, $43,876. District Court, $11,355. Juvenile, $69,516. Prosecutor, $89,239. Coroner, $14,069. Sheriff's Office, $717,172. Indigent Defense, 0. Superior Court, $54,000. Treasurer's Office, $60,954. And the health transfer of $30,718.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions from the commission for staff?
I just want to clarify or at least check my way of thinking here. We have two offices that have one office that has submitted a revenue increase, and that was the clerk's office of $22,950. Their reductions that they proposed to us were $22,893 less than what we'd hoped.
That is correct.
So I'm going to look at that as basically a wash.
That is correct.
That balance of having increased revenues basically help them meet the reduction request.
That is correct.
Then we had in the prosecutor's office that $15,000 credit for not filling a position. Can you explain what that was and how that'll impact the requested cuts?
That is a position I believe they have not filled since the first of the year, so they had agreed with the commission early on in the budget process that they weren't going to fill that position, and so that is being earmarked as a credit towards them.
Okay. So if I do the math then, if I add in $15,000, that would take the basically the difference at $11,953.
That is correct.
Okay, so thank you.
Any additional questions? Jen, if you could just please explain, I'd like to point out that support services came in $41,000 above. If you could just explain how we got to that number a little bit, and
They had voluntary reductions in staff, so, and with that, and then additional reductions in force, so.
do we have a net number of staff reductions within support services?
I believe overall, there was 9 staff that were reduced, and then, I believe it was 9 was the reduction.
Plus 3
3. Mm-hmm.
3 extra help.
Well, 3 that got put back in because 2 that were reduced were in the same department.
Okay.
So that had volunteered.
Okay. Commissioner.
So I want to clarify, there was a reduction of 9. Out of the 9, because there was an article in the paper that actually said something different, but out of the 9, 3 of those were brought back on at a lower level. They started out, if I believe, at a 26. They were being brought back in these positions at a 19 and a 20. So, but even with that, there's still a net loss of 6.
That is correct.
Okay.
Plus 3 seasonal.
Plus three seasonal, so
Total 9.
9.
Correct. Okay. Okay. Before we head into the public comment portion, I want to revisit some of our guidelines or ground rules or wherever you want to call it for making public comment. We want to hear from as many people as everybody here that would.
I was hoping we'd still hear from the department head also. He had something to speak about.
Sure. Did you have a question for staff?
No, he had a part of the presentation he wanted to.
There was a question that was raised, which is to answer why are we here. We have 3 converging issues. 1, dramatically increasing expenses. 2, continued flat or reducing revenues. And 3, depletion of previous reserves. In the last 7 years, we've increased expenditures in the county 28%, while revenues have only increased 12%. That's a 133% difference. Imagine doing that with your home finances. Last year, the Board of County Commissioners was presented with a preliminary budget that was $7.8 million more in expenses than revenues, 26% more than revenues. Again, think of it in terms of your home finances. When you assume you're going to have to spend $50,000 a year on expenses when you're earning a salary of $40,000. In 2017, the preliminary budget projection projected an 8% reduction in revenues and requested an increase in expenditures of 7.9%. A 24% increase over the prior year, generating a 31% revenue to expense spread. The Board of County Commissioners fought to adopt a budget that brought expenses down to $4.1 million over revenues, which ultimately reduced reserves to the minimum allowed by county resolution, which is 9%. When the 2017 budget was adopted, it was identified that for 2018 and beyond, either revenues would need to be increased via a lid lift proposition or a sales tax increase, or expenditures will need to be dramatically reduced. These proposals can be enacted by resolution from the Board of County Commissioners and placed on the ballot in November and still impact the 2018 budget. Again, thinking of it as your home finances, imagine you decided to spend $44,000 instead of the $25,000, knowing that your salary is $40,000, and then take $4,000 out of your bank savings to support that expenditure. That's what the county has done. Because the county reserves are only 9% by mid-March in 2017, prior to the county collecting April property taxes, the county's cash balance was $170,000 roughly, dramatically identifying the need to increase the 9% reserve requirement. With this information, in May of 2017, the Finance Committee deemed it necessary that the board review its reserve requirement and increase it to at least 16%, but recommended 25%, taking it from a $4 million to at least a $6 million reserve, but recommended that it be $8 million. What this means is that at the end of the year, the county must have at least enough reserve on hand to get cash flow to the April property tax receipts with sufficient cushion to manage through an emergency. This budget reduction is the only way BOC's Board of County Commissioners can increase the reserve balances so that the county has enough funds to pay their expenses and have enough reserves to manage through an emergency through to April when the county receives its cash property tax payments. The problem: every year, most departments play a game of asking to increase their budgets with no consideration of how to pay for it. In 2016, the Sheriff's Office requested an increase in their budget to $17.4 million. In 2009, their budget was $9.5. This is an 83% increase. How does any department expect county revenues to support such an increase? In 2017, the sheriff requested an increase to $15.1 million. From 2009, this would have been a 60% increase. Again, how can this be sustained? Since 2009, the Sheriff's Office has been limited to increases in their budget to 46% due to collective bargaining agreements, CPI clauses, salary, staffing, and operational increases, totaling $4.4 million. The entire county's general fund reserves over the same period has increased only $3.4 million. I hope you can see the problem here. The Sheriff's Office increased salaries 35%, while operational expenses have increased 142%. Additionally, the Sheriff's Office has received since 2009 $3.4 million in budget supplementals in addition to their adopted budget, which included $750,000 for 15 vehicles, which was paid for out of non-departmental, not the sheriff's budget. The fact that revenues are increasing at a 1% rate, not as fast as expenses, which are increasing at a 3.5% rate, however, is not the fault of the Sheriff's Office. And it is not the fault of the Board of County Commissioners. When all indications in the county are that the citizens are not willing to increase revenues at the request of the Commission alone. The real problem here is that there is no sustainable mechanism established by the state legislature to maintain financial sustainability in county operations. When taxes and revenues increase 1.5% annually, and we have salaries and expenses increasing almost 4% annually, the only way to sustain a reasonable reserve balance is to continually reduce our expenses, our workforce, and/or to continue reducing services. The solution. The Board of County Commissioners must define its priorities of government through an extensive strategic planning effort. This does not mean the Sheriff's Office is the only department to get funding, but rather, given the revenues in any one given year, the Board of County Commissioners must allocate the available reserves to pay for all the necessary functions of government. This requires the Board of County Commissioners to say no at times when revenues cannot support increases. All expenditures must be supported with identified, verifiable, and realistic revenue increases. All staffing increases must be supported by defined and measurable increased service requirements and must be supported by available revenue increases. If no revenue increases are identified, there must be service or staff reductions defined in other areas of the county to support the transition of expenditures from one function of government to another. With limited revenues, all increases in one function can only be supported by an equivalent decrease in another function. All salary increases must be supported with service improvements to include defined collective bargaining agreement performance improvements, measurables. As I have brought forward at least a dozen times in the past 3 years, the Board of County Commissioners should approach the Mason County citizens with a request to increase property taxes or sales taxes. They must define in advance how the Board of County Commissioners will allocate these increases and what improvements will be made. If unsuccessful in this endeavor, all county departments must be reticent to live within the confines of the existing annual revenues. That's just an answer towards how we got where we are, what the problem is, and what might be opportunities for solutions. Any questions?
Commissioner?
Will you make that available to the public, what you have written?
Of course.
Any other questions for Frank at this point? Okay. So, as I was saying, as we move into the public comment portion of today, we want to hear from everybody here who would like to speak on this particular issue. In an effort to be courteous and allow everyone that wants to speak the opportunity to speak, we will limit comments to 3 minutes per person. And we will sit here as long as it takes to hear from everybody that wants to provide a comment on the budget reductions. As we were reminded a little bit earlier in our meeting today, this is not an opportunity for a dialogue necessarily with the commission, but an opportunity for members of the public to have their voices heard by the commission. And so I would ask that commissioners respect that, as well as the public, when it comes time to make comments. My wife told me last week that when I use the gavel, I always apologize immediately after gaveling somebody. I always gavel and say sorry. So if I have to gavel you, I'm sorry. But I want to make sure that we can maintain some decorum and some respect for the institution of the county. We have the ability to sit here and look at 150 years worth of commissioners who sat not in this building, but who have sat in the seat of commissioners in Mason County in our history. And so it's we want to make sure that we do right by everybody who has come through here in the past. And so with that, I will open the public comment period again. 3 minutes per person. I will give you a sign when you're getting close and ask you to wrap it up as we get there. If you would mind just kind of forming a line towards the front of the room here. And this is, I guess, for folks that are next door in the BOE room listening, if they would like to move their way over here to make comment as well, we will do that. But at this time, I'll open the public comment portion of today's meeting and invite you to come forward, state your name, and the chair will recognize you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Wayne Snowy, S-N-O-E-Y, resident of Lake Cushman area. I've served 10 years in the past as an elected official, Puget Sound Regional Council, King County Flood Control Advisory Committee, etc., transportation for many years. When a lot of people like this show up, something's not good, right? When you're doing a great job, nobody ever shows up to find out that you're doing a great job. So there's a problem here. We faced this in our city, Covington, in 2008, and we had to make drastic budget cuts. But we also considered revenue increases. And we went to our citizens and asked them, what would you like us to do? Do we lay off 10 police officers or 5 or whatever the number was? And the decision ultimately was, from the feedback, we added a utility tax at the time, which we didn't have. Now, I'm here instead of golfing this morning, which, and I didn't want to yell as Senator Warren did, somebody's going to die. Well, you know, this is, you have a budget. You have to live within it, and we understand that. But, and I can't speak to all the departments. I simply don't have the time to winnow through your budgets. But our law enforcement side, I'm very concerned about. I have law enforcement experience way back. And when I look in the Mason County Journal, and I'm used to reading one page of information about crimes, and recently I flipped, and it was 2.5 pages. Something's not right, and it seems to me, based on response times and whatnot, we probably don't have enough deputies, much less now talking about laying off deputies. So with the likelihood, and again, I'm not looking at actual stats, that crime is probably increasing, maybe this isn't the time to do those reductions there. I would encourage this commission to look not only at cuts, but also at revenue increases. Get your citizens involved. Get a citizens committee together. We did this at one time. We had them analyze every department to see where we were doing a good job from the citizens' perspective, which are your bosses, as we all know, as elected officials, and get that buy-in. So maybe it's time for a property tax increase. It's small, we're not talking huge numbers, or particularly I like sales tax, because everybody passing through this county will help contribute to our deficit, right? We grew, when we saw we had a problem back in the early 2000s, we made decisions. The first was, what can we grow as a county? Property tax is hard to do, and you have to have a vote. The council had the ability to raise to do things to generate sales tax revenue. For 10 or 11 years straight, we were the #1 city in the state of Washington for sales tax increase. And that's how we funded our police and operations and so forth. And so I encourage that you take a look at that as well. Nobody wants a tax increase But certainly, that is a viable option. Time?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I got a lot more to say.
Okay, I'm Herb Gerhardt from Belfair again, and I want to just state I'm glad I'm not sitting up there making these decisions. It's going to be uncomfortable no matter how you do it, and you're going to have people in uproar against you no matter which way you go. From the research I've done in the last week, increasing taxes in my mind, seems to be the only way of getting out of this dilemma, and I'll support that. I looked at the county, whether the county had been taking their 1% and banked it. Yes, the county has already taken their 1% and all their banked availabilities of funds. They did that last year, so that's not an option. The road fund, however, has not taken their 1% every year, and they do have some banked reserves left. I would suggest perhaps we ought to dip into that and max that out in the next budget, and then once you take it, you can divert that money. That will give you some without having to go to the voters. As far as the deputy reductions go, keep in mind, let's not be penny wise and dollar foolish, is deputy training costs in excess of $100,000 per deputy before he's allowed to be on the road by himself, and it takes about a year. So if you're going to lay off, say, five of them, that's $500,000 that you've just thrown out the window. If you intend to bring them back. If you permanently eliminate them, that's another story. But if it's a temporary deal, you're bringing them back, keep in mind that it's $100,000 plus per deputy, plus a loss of 1 year's service. Public safety, in my mind, is the utmost importance for the county government. If you can't keep the people safe, then you're failing all the way around. And like I say, for public safety, I am willing to increase the taxes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Judge.
Judge Victoria Meadows, Mason County District Court. First, I would like to acknowledge Patsy Robinson. I've heard a rumor today that she was going to be axed. Rumor is not true, and I would note also that the Misdemeanor Corrections Association named her Administrator of the Year. So I'm clearing up whatever rumors you may have heard. Further, I would again implore the commissioners to do an analysis of the mandatory functions of the various agencies in government that are provided here. The nice but not necessary, and in the middle is the necessary but not mandatory. And I think that analysis must be done rather than requesting a straight across the board. Everybody throws in a piece of their pie and then we're all equal. That doesn't work that way. I brought for the commissioners a historical analysis in district court of the filings, and point out in 1987 when there was a full-time judge and I think perhaps 1.5 less staff, clerical staff, including the administrator, there was only 5,005 filings that year, combined total of criminal and civil. By 1997, it was up to 6,987. Now, in 94, Judge King successfully argued before the Board of Commissioners that he needed a half-time commissioner in addition to a full-time judge, and that was funded for the 95 position. I came in looking around and I said, I think I can do things more efficiently, and I believe I and my staff have. And it wasn't until a few years later that we did hire another clerical staff. I'm still the only judge to this date. Since 1997, we've been operating with the same number of staff. Yet, in 1997, there were 6,982 filings. 2015, we had 9,937 filings. We had a similar number in 2016. We are operating with staff that we are burning out. I cannot afford to lose a part-time staff. I need to maintain the full office in order to get the job done. We are putting in extreme pressure, and we have been for the last 10 years, when I've started asking for an increase in the number of clerical staff to help. And we are still going to be requesting in next year's budget 2 additional staff, and we recognize again that there may be limitations financially on that, and we're going to be requesting a half-time judge. But for this year and for next year, there is no way that we can provide the mandatory services required by the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of Washington State, and the laws of Washington to provide mandatory services. There's not one service that we provide that's not required by law. And yes, are we at the 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Just by Pat. Thank you, Judge.
Mary Russell from Tahuya, and I will make this short and sweet, and hopefully Victoria can take what's left of my time. I am not a regular at these meetings. There was a time when I was at these meetings weekly. And my sympathy goes out in one respect to you 3 commissioners, because I was at port commissioners, fire commissioners, school board meetings, and a lot of meetings, and nobody ever came out until you did something, and then they came out with blood in their eye. I'm not seeing that so far. I did attend a commissioners meeting last summer where you were discussing the boat ordinances. And during that meeting, the discretionary funds that the departments were allowed to use at their discretion. Now, I'm sure my mind is not going to bring up the right figures, but it seemed to me it was $200,000 that the sheriff could have, and maybe $40,000 the other departments could have at their discretion, which sounded on the surface very, very reasonable, until somebody asked the percentage, and that percentage went from 7% overall for the departments except the sheriff's department, which was 0.3%. So I come to this meeting with a healthy dose of skepticism. The sheriff's department is vital to us, absolutely, the citizens, and we have excellent policing in the North End. I would hate to see our sheriff reduced. And you talk about meetings with blood in their eyes. If that North End precinct has to be shut because there is not funding for it, you might as well hire the gymnasium at Shelton High School to fill the room, because that is what will happen. I appreciate the time, and if there's anything left, Victoria can have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Good morning. My name is Karen Hare. I'm not the auditor. I frequently get confused with her. I'm a nurse and a project manager in Lean Six Sigma, and I'm proposing not just not raising taxes, but also not cutting positions. That is not a sustainable, long-range, effective plan. What that does is it doesn't help us meet our short-term or our long-term goals. It actually pulls back some of the progress we've made by funding the programs that we have chosen to fund. And there's not just financial impacts, but there's human impacts and costs that cannot be operationalized by numbers alone. So what I'm asking that we do is, instead of making these difficult decisions, freezing the budget for changes over the next 3 to 4 months, bring a group of people who are interested stakeholders together to meet, whether they be commissioners, department heads for the county, business people, finance experts, project management experts, community interested people, and spend that time looking and brainstorming at ways to manage this budget in non-typical ways. Looking at waste, using Lean Six Sigma principles. That has been proven to increase efficiency, decrease waste, increase morale and productivity. Just by applying that, the wheel does not have to be reinvented. It also would look at finding ways to increase revenue very quickly and long range. People have talked about not wanting taxes raised. There are simple things that we can do quickly to raise revenue, and then there's long-range planning, like you're bringing in the Pee-wee to have people spend more money. There are other models that other communities use to produce this revenue. And I would ask, since I don't have time to go through some of these examples, to either meet with you or meet with some interest department heads so that we can explore these ideas further and find different ways to come up with more sustainable and productive and efficient solutions. Thank you.
Thank you.
What a breath of fresh air. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Rob Drexler. I live at 51 East Sinclair Place in Shelton. And I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I actually wrote it down today because I tend to ramble. But I come today to lend my support to you in the most difficult job you have to do and to thank you for being willing to do that job. Your task is thankless at best, and I want to encourage you to stay the course regardless of what others try to do to intimidate you. I appreciate the fact that there is more than one department that you must ensure continues to work properly for the overall well-being of all the citizens, not to mention those that are required by law. No one department is more important than the other. To short others unfairly merely would hurt us all even more. Without the assessor, we couldn't correctly receive property taxes, so where we get our money to buy things with. If we short the auditor, we may not be able to exercise our most basic right of voting. Those are things that we just can't not have. To short the health services, we would regress to polluting our waterways and stop development, as well as putting our citizens at risk of being sick. If we don't have our mental health programs, we would put even more pressure on our first responders, and the list goes on and on and on. It is said that no man is an island, and I believe that holds true for the community as well. It takes all of us to make it work, and we should all be a part of that solution. We should all work collaboratively to put forward solutions that work best for the entire county, not be like entitled children. The purposeful, rampant misinformation campaigns that invariably goes along with an issue such as this is evidently now the norm, and it turns my stomach that we have to regress to that level to protect our little kingdom instead of working for the greater good. That methodology has gone so far in this issue that two friends of mine, this was just last weekend, have been literally threatened with bodily harm due to the fear-mongering that's been pushed out on this whole issue. With that, I want to again commend you for doing the job you're doing and encourage you to stay the course and do the right thing for the good of all citizens of this wonderful place we live, Mason County. Know that my thoughts and prayers are with you, as well as my offer to give assistance in any way I can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Tom Davis. I was out there in the lobby listening to Mr. Pinter and learned that the problem that we're facing here is not the sheriff's fault, and it's not your fault. It's our fault. I beg to disagree. When the public is brought into the process, in the decision-making process regarding budgetary issues, it's usually at the time when your choice is a bullet to the head or a knife through the heart. That's basically what happens in this budget process, because we wind up standing here with the same problems year after year after year. When we treating people with chemical dependency and alcoholism, it takes sometimes months before they finally take responsibility for their own actions. Before they finally say, it wasn't because my wife left me, it wasn't because I lost my job or I ran over the dog. It's my responsibility. We don't have that many months, so I'm here to assign responsibility to you. It's your responsibility. You made the major decisions that brought us here in the middle of the budget year to cut $2 million off the current expense fund. That is unprecedented. Now, I'm just not a no-fault guy, because you can't move forward. I just want to make my position clear and then move forward. So I would hope that during the discussion you'll take responsibility for why we are here, and we can move on. Moving on, I'd like to say that where the future of Mason County is and where the revenue generation potential is in residential growth. It is not in business It is in residential growth simply because we generated $78 million from property taxes in 2016 and $5 million from sales and use tax, and by the way, another $6 million in REIT funds. This is where our focus needs to be. Nothing's going to solve today's problem, but this is the time to start thinking of the 2023 budget and what we can do to get the codes so we can, the building codes and the ordinances in line so we can have more access to developable land. This is the time to stop putting large tracts of land into conservancy. It's counterproductive to our goal. We need a little bit more vision further on down the line instead of a crisis today. And I think that if we, and I agree with the person who stood here and said, put together a group of people, concerned citizens, who'd like to sit down with you have an ongoing conversation of how we can make our lives so we're not standing here next year and the year after. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dia Jay, and I am the kennel manager for Adopt-A-Pet. I work almost daily with the Mason County Sheriff's Department. Their courteous deputies come out when we have a situation where there are individuals that need to be removed. The thought of potentially not having that for me to keep my staff safe. We are a nonprofit, all-volunteer organization. I would hope, in an effort to think about the public safety as well as the safety of the dogs, if you would reconsider and reevaluate the cutting of any deputies. I've been a Mason County resident for 5 years. It's my first rural experience. It was different moving here, but I always felt safe. The thought of losing the deputies and potentially animal control is terrifying. We have also worked with them to the point of where this last year, I only came and found 2 dogs tied to my gate. Mason County sheriffs have stepped up. They always have available kennel space from us, and we want to continue being safe and having them work alongside with professional courtesy. And I just please hope that you would look at the budget and reconsider those cuts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Again, good morning. I'm glad I held off. Some very nice comments. I was very informative. The first gentleman, the judge, and can maybe speak to some of that. This kind of situation kind of reminds me of General Patton and Field Marshal Rommel, how they outran their supply lines back in the Second World War. Well, that's kind of what's happened here. Your supplies are money, not guns and ammunition and gasoline. And I think that there's an elephant in the room that nobody's addressing and nobody's even thinking about. It's going to take some thinking outside the box. But back in 1996, Mr. Shuddy here was still in junior high school. We passed a thing called the Growth Management Act. It was it was a bad time in this county. Nobody knew what they were doing. People's rights were violated. I had to personally get involved and spend a lot of time and money organizing people to save our property rights up on the Golden Pheasant Road. But when that act was passed, one of the things that was in that act is that all natural resource products in Mason County are basically, they were protected from any zoning. In other words, if a gravel company wanted to open a gravel pit right next door to you, pretty much they could do whatever they wanted to. So what was protected was timber, minerals, greenery, and shellfish. And when I look around today at the way Mason County looks, I came out here in 1991. There has been a change. There's been no meaningful growth that I could really see other than a Walmart store. And what I'm seeing, though, as I think a lot of you do, and I'm sure the judge does every day, she has to deal with some of the human wreckage that's walking around that she has to deal with, and then our sheriff's department has to deal with these people. And I had the opportunity to sit in on some court hearings a couple of years ago and watch what the judge here has to deal with. And a lot of those problems are being caused is what also creates the law enforcement problem we have is by our economic situation here. And I want to tell people, this isn't probably going to go over like a lead balloon, but I don't consider the lumber and timber industry in Mason County to be a good neighbor. If it were up to me, I wouldn't let a stick of wood leave this country unless it was processed into a 2x4 or a piece of plywood. And this is where the problem has happened. We're looking at people like the judge and the sheriff's department have to deal with. They're probably coming up on third generation children of displaced timber workers. People, the work didn't pay all that much when they did have jobs, and when they lost their jobs, they got trapped out here. That's basically what's happened to most of these people, and it's like a domino effect. And today we're seeing that. Our sheriff's department is being outpaced by crime, and like the gentleman in the blue talked about, I'm from Covington also originally. I moved out here from Covington. We have to look at other forms of revenue. And I would like to propose, and I'd like to also be on any kind of a citizens committee if you'd like to have me. I wouldn't charge you a dime. I'd like to see a way where we can put a personal property tax on standing timber. I'd like to see a tonnage tax on minerals that go out of here every time. And I mean, he's Mr. Mankey over here. He's got the chute. Am I done?
You went a little bit over, you just wrap it up.
Okay, anyway, that's my proposal, is that we need to look at a natural resources tax that affects all natural resources in Mason County, up to including brush and Christmas trees. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I'll take over. I got it.
Patricia Vanderhay, 111 South Lupin Place in Shelton. I'd like to show my support for the sheriff's office. I'm going to say that I'm going to be concerned because if something happens and I need help, I want to be assured somebody's going to be there, and that we're not going to have enough deputies to do that. I would make a suggestion strongly suggest that the money that's been given to the EDC be given to the Sheriff's Department. When they first started out getting money, it was not to exceed $5,000 a year. Then eventually, when I got involved with the county and doing things in 2010, it was up to $34,000 from the county, $34,000 from the city. City said, we can't afford it, we can't pay it. So Sheldon, when he was a commissioner, said, don't worry about it, the county will pay it. So we give them $68,000 a year. This year they asked for $100,000. I don't know what they do. I have yet to see any really productive businesses brought in by the EDC. There's a lot of talk, there's a lot of things going on with the head of it, but there's very little results. So I'd like to see that money go to a better effort, and that's why that would be my suggestion, to give it to the Sheriff's Department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sylvia Flores Milsom, and I am just merely a citizen. I am here because I had never used the Sheriff's Department or any department in this county since 2002 that I moved here. However, I had an unfortunate opportunity to use them back in '09. And not only was I grateful that the Sheriff's Department was there immediately, but I also knew that they would be there. So my point is that we don't need them until we need them. And because of that accident, I decided when I retired I was going to do some volunteer work for Mason County because everyone was very good to me here. And so I volunteer at the Sheriff's Department, Sheriff's Office. And I can tell you from experience that Nobody's sitting around doing nothing. And I know that when a call is made, it's on my computer. When the call is assigned, it's on my computer. And I see this many calls and this many people that are being taken care of. Now, having said that, again, I have never seen any sheriff sitting around doing nothing. And therefore, I'm assuming, even though I haven't been there that long, I'm assuming that we already have a shortage. And then more of a shortage by the budget being cut is unfair to me, to people my age, to young people, to people that need help. There are people, when I'm there, I see people coming in that have been scammed. I see people coming in that are registering for being a sex offender. I see people that off their rocker. I see people that just have simple complaints that they want to address. And lots of times they have to wait for a sheriff because they're out doing things. They're out taking care of other problems. So what I ask is that the budget, I know how important it is because I am now retired, and so I know about a budget. And I've had to cut my budget, but not in important things that take care of me. I'm not going to cut out my medical care. I'm not going to cut out my phone. And so therefore, I'm asking you to not leave me out there to fend for myself. Because there's a lot of people my age and older that need these people, and younger. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Melody Peterson, County Assessor. One of the most boring offices that we have, but the budget reduction is unfortunate and discouraging, as the Assessor's Office has always been responsible for and aware of the budgeting authority allowed us and has not required additional funding at the end of any year. What I would like to do is bring attention to some points to our taxpayers, the businesses we deal with, and other county offices that we deal with, that with the reduction in the budget and the staff levels for the balance of 2017, we will experience a backlog for processing our state mandated programs as well as the additional services that we provide for the taxpayer. So there'll be no updated line parcel changes in the county GIS mapping. Name changes, if you purchase a property, we'll get that done as time allows. The senior disabled exemptions, we will process them as we can. We will request reduced hours to cover lunch hours at the counter. If you have a new plat, any property divisions, combinations, or boundary line adjustments, they will be processed as time allows. Researching chain of title, ooh, that one's when possible. Current use and current use farm and ag applications will be processed as we can. Our presence at the Board of Equalization will be reduced to minimal, and it will be difficult in the future to bring in the new construction values. So I can't predict how many applications we're going to get. I can't predict how many boundary line adjustments are going to come through, but we will do our best to complete what we can, but it won't be as timely as we would have enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning.
Morning.
Honorable Chair, Commissioner Devlin, Commissioner Drexler, I got it right this time, Mr. Whitehead. Hey, Rick Engelhardt with Teamsters Local 252. We're here to speak that we're against any kind of layoffs right now. A couple reasons why. One, who's going to do the work? As you just heard from Ms. Peterson, talking with the parks guys, with the layoffs projected, we'll have two individuals taking care of all that area. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Secondly, one of my frustrations is that the unrealistic time frames that you gave back to the departments to come up with budget cuts. I mean, really you knew back in March, June 26th it came out, and you wanted budget cut proposals back to them by July 12th, and then you have a public hearing today. So, we are definitely against any kind of layoffs, but we understand that there is a budget concern. We won't negate that. But however, I would ask that you don't take any action today, and let's bring all the stakeholders back in and let's look at any and all avenues. Let's just not go real fast, because I think in the long run, the residents and our members and all the members, not just our bargaining units, but the non-rep, the bargaining units, the managers, everybody's going to suffer. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matthew Wieland. I'm the chief of Mason County Fire District 16. I'm asking you to continue to allow me to do my job safely. When I started in the fire department in 1987, there were a couple of deputies on at a shot. You'd have one, maybe two in the city of Shelton. You had a trooper. I've been trapped in a house. I've had to row a dinghy to the middle of Lake Cushman and try to do CPR in a rubber raft. I've had to do a bunch of things that you don't have to do anymore because we have the appropriate resources within Mason County. I'm on an isolated side of the county. In West Mason County, we don't have the benefit of Thurston County Sheriff's Office coming up to help us in an emergency. We don't have extra troopers. We don't have people coming down from Belfair. We have us. Back in the day, when there weren't enough deputies, you ended up with volunteer firefighters coming to help deputies in fights. We got called to the hospital on a regular basis for unruly patients. Now that's all on the hands of law enforcement, and we thank them for it every day. Law enforcement is a first step in mental health. It's the first step in suicide attempts. It's the first step in many drug overdoses. If you think about the heroin epidemic in not just Mason County, but in the United States, you have to remember that heroin stops you from breathing. It's an opiate, and so you have 4 to 6 minutes to get somebody breathing again. The types of situations that somebody finds themselves in where they're using heroin is not a Sunday party at church. There's not a bunch of nice-looking people in hats. So we typically wait for law enforcement. If I have to wait for somebody to come from Belfair or the south end of the county or from Lake Cushman because there's only one or two on, these are people that are going to die. So I'm not saying I can fix all your budget problems. What I'm saying is I have a problem. Law enforcement is the only real fix for it. And I need you to keep the deputies on that we have. I cannot safely do it. I can't safely send my people in. I need your help. So that's where I'm at.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Ryan Sperling, Mason County Sheriff's Office, Chief Criminal Deputy. Obviously, we didn't get here overnight. This took a while to get to this place, and it's a tough place that you guys are at. The thing that we would request, we understand that the Sheriff's Office budget is a big part of the county's budget, and we're going to have to take cuts to help to be involved in that process. What we would ask is that you don't do it overnight. It took us a long time to get here. Usually an immediate response is not going to get a long-term lasting results that we would like as a county. And I come as a citizen and I say, let's do this slowly, let's do it right. Let's not do a knee-jerk reaction and try to make it right in one fell swoop. We understand we're part of that process of getting where we need to be. We just encourage you to take time and not do it too quickly. The 10 days that we had, we spent the last 10 days sequestered in a room trying to figure out how to do it with the least amount of impact to the citizens. Because I'm up on my 30th year of law enforcement. I don't do this for the money. I don't do this for the accolades. I do this because it's who I am. And that's the majority of the officers out there. We want to see the citizens, and you're part of those citizens, well protected with the best that we can give. Let's take our time. The other thing is perspective. It's always tough in the midst of something like this, and as my wife's grandmother said, and I've often repeated it, life is like a roll of toilet paper. It gets faster as you get towards the end of the roll. Our life is kicking by, and we're going to leave a legacy. What legacy are you guys going to leave? Please consider that as we go through this. Thank you.
Thank you. Morning, Commission. Kevin Hansen, Jail Chief for the Sheriff. It's unfortunate that we're in this position we're in today. Like Chief Sperling said, that this just didn't happen overnight. This has been a making in the last several years. And we talk about, public safety being impacted and how that's going to look. With the budget cuts that we have, with the vacant positions that we have in the jail, which Mr. Pincher talked about last week, that there's nine positions that are vacant right now. Those positions are part of that $717,000 that was reported this morning from Ms. Sleva. 5 of those positions are out of the jail. We have 34 deputies assigned to the jail that wear uniforms. That's a 15% reduction of jail staff. We can't continue to serve the population that we're serving with 5 people less. We have 3, with this proposal, it's going to equate to 1 8-hour-a-day position, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, less that we're going to have in the jail. That means that a night shift, our staff is going to work with 80 inmates with 3 people. And there's no way around it. So, we talk about safety of the community, we talk about safety of our staff, as well as the safety of the inmates. And I just need you guys to know that this is going to be a huge impact on our operation. So, anyhow, thank you very much. Thank you.
Morning, Commissioners. Jim Barrett, Undersheriff, Mason County Sheriff's Office. I'm going to make one brief comment, and it goes to the message that Director Pincher put out. If in fact predictable is preventable, we had an opportunity last budget season to fix this issue. Many opportunities that were at the board's ability to decide on were not exercised. And we find ourselves right here at that same moment. Several months ago, this issue was brought up, and opportunities could have been reached before we came to this crisis. We could have talked interphone loans. We had levy shift opportunities. We have traffic diversion opportunities. We had tax issues. We could have joined with the city. This has not happened overnight. And there have been many people over the years, myself included, who have been asking for those things. What is the strategic plan? What is the mission? What is the vision? What are the goals and objectives? So departments and offices could align our operations to the county's overarching operations. And now we're just getting to that point. So predictable was preventable. And last November, we had approximately 10 open positions. The budget was adopted. That budget was adopted and underfunded. We now left these positions open knowing this day was coming. We didn't think it was going to be the magnitude as what has been presented, but we were prepared to deal with this without layoffs because we knew it was underfunded. We have come up and offered up $717,000 out of $898,000 that was requested without making any layoffs to operations. But the 2 chiefs have just spoken to the issue about the critical impacts that's going to have. And as you well know, somebody else is going to have to pick up the workload of those positions that we were unable to fill. So that being said, I don't know how we get around this other than perhaps we look at a very deliberate 3 to 5 year plan. We step back, we stop this, you meet as the citizens have asked to meet, get some ideas about where we need to go and how to get there, consider an interfund loan to bridge this gap, take some of the cuts that can be done in a less draconian way, and then come up with a strategy for 18, 19, 20, 21. As Tom Davis said, look 5, 6, 7 years out. What's our end game? Where are we trying to get to, and what's the road to get there? That's never been articulated to anybody that I'm familiar with in this office, and that's what we need to help plan on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Burbridge, Fire District 4 Chief. The fire districts are such a huge partner for the county because the law says our shirts say Mason County. We're actually state municipal corporations. So we've always been a huge partner for the county. A couple alarming things is I'm watching my county emergency manager job description get diluted. There's a day-to-day world, and there's what's going on with the proverbial declaration of emergency. It could be so diluted that we'll never recover after. It's going to be weather, it's going to be fire. We are blessed to be in this section of the nation that our natural disasters are predictable. We partner with the sheriff, whether in District 4, whether it's youth services, or whether it's special operations with rope rescue, and that is a good dollar spent. Indirectly, we partner with county roads, because when a county tree falls over the county road and the State Fire Protection District gets called, where does that call truly go? There's an argument there. The grant writer, I don't know if there's going to be a dilution of that, losing deputies, diluting my emergency manager, firing a grant writer. We make decisions 7 years out at Fire District 4. We don't do things today that we can't support 7 years out. I would love to talk to your grant writer because I'm talking with other fire districts to bring more money into Mason County. So if you're going to throw out that grant writer, send them to me because we need to plan out more than 7 years. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Hello, Corporate Mason County Sheriff's Office, also Guild President and Fraternal Order of Police Lodge President. I've been here almost 10 years. I've seen where we started from and where we are now. We've come a long way. I actually have backup now. I remember a time where sitting up in Tahuya having 6 detained by myself and a citizen helping me out, arresting people. It was ridiculous. It's nice having backup now, and I want to keep it that way. We lose as many deputies as they've been talking about. We're going to be worse than when I started from. And we can't recover from that. It takes a long time to train deputies, and it's a long process to get good candidates. And we've done well where we are right now, and I want to keep it that way. So, on behalf of the Fraternal Order of Police and the Mason County Sheriff's Guild, let's keep what we have.
Thank you, Corporal. I've been asked if we could just take a brief break. We can continue. Let's see what time it is. If we just take 5 minutes for a quick recess and come back at 11 a.m. to continue the public hearing. I appreciate everybody's indulgence there as we broke for a few minutes. At this point, I would like to continue back with public comment. And so if we could reform the line and invite the next member of the public to come forward and testify.
Ready?
Yes, please.
Good morning. My name is Jim David. I'm an attorney out of Vancouver. I represent law enforcement officers around the state through the Fraternal Order of Police. My background, though, is actually as a prosecuting attorney. I am one of the few retired prosecutors in the state. I worked with officers for 30-plus years as a prosecutor, have handled hundreds of cases, thousands of cases with them. There's one thing that I know as a prosecutor, as a retired prosecutor, and for my current position, and that is that the officers that you hire, the officers that are out there are overwhelmingly dedicated to protect the citizens, to protect the people. When you go through the process of hiring an officer, it is not a secret that it is expensive, it is time-consuming, and it is very difficult to actually obtain and hire a qualified officer. When you hire the officer, you're launching into a process that actually involves training of that officer for years. When you hire an officer, you initially keep them around the department for a few weeks so they get oriented, they can find their way around, and then you send them off to the academy. When they're back from the academy, the officer then starts 6 months to a year of training, of initial training. Your county has invested in your officers so far and in your deputies so far, but that training doesn't stop. In order to become a qualified, a fully functional working officer actually takes years of experience. In my experience, when I've dealt with officers and dealt with deputies, when they hit the road the first few months, they're still learning, and it actually takes a couple of years before they really get up to speed and get going as far as being a useful, completely useful and effective officer. When they came into my office when I wanted to prosecute a case, it could take 3 to 5 years before an officer was actually fully apprised of how the court processes go. What we don't want to see, and what we can't see, is reducing officers that have already gone through the process, that have started this process to learn. If you lay the officers off, or if they're forced to leave, you will be losing the investment that you've already put in to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars per officer in many cases. When they appear 4 years from now, 5 years from now, applying for a job, if you lay them off, some other agency is going to be looking at them, and they're going to be taking the money that the citizens of Mason County have spent, and they're going to take your investment and take those officers away. There are departments around the state, you've heard that it is difficult to actually hire officers. It is difficult because you cannot find the chosen few, the select officers, the select people very easily. Between polygraphs, background checks, the desire to actually work nights and graveyards, to do things like that, are all investments that you've done already. And so to do something where you're going to release the officers is effectively, it's like building a road, tearing it up and throwing it away. That's what your budget proposes to do. Now, the sheriff has worked very, very hard at trying to achieve a budget that is workable, to achieve a budget that will take significant hits to his department and protect the officers and protect the investment that you've got already into these people. What we're asking is that you simply follow the budget, find a way to save the officers, save the investment that you've already put in, and protect the citizens of Mason County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Wayne Thompson. I'm the union representative for several bargaining units in the county, deputy prosecuting attorneys, Office of Public Defense, and the corrections and support staff. And our folks are doing incredible job, as understaffed as they are today. And we would ask that we look at all alternatives, whether we have to move money around to adequately fund all of the departments. Because we've got people that are actually going above and beyond right now in the position that they're in, being understaffed, making ends meet, and understand the challenges that you have, but cuts are not the way to go at this point as far as staffing is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Casey Salisbury, Mason County Sheriff. There's been a lot made of the Sheriff's Office. Obviously, as you can see, it's the easiest group probably to speak of because we are the largest and probably affect many or most of the lives out there. I want to speak a little bit about the human side of this that I think has been forgotten, or some people have got up and talked about. Over the weekend, I had a young woman from one of the Commission's departments approach me and ask me if I would stand with her today because she didn't feel like she was being stood up for. She's one that lost her job. I told her I'm not technically her boss in her department, and I asked why she would like me to stand here. She was concerned that if she stood up, she would be berated and belittled in a public meeting for saying anything. She chose not to be here today. There are other people besides the Sheriff's Office affected by this, and I ask that you not forget them. My wife told me that, it's not your job to be in it, for everybody else. And yes, it is. The definition of sheriff is you're the chief law enforcement officer of the county. That's everybody that lives here, including members of the city and every person that resides here or passes through here. Please don't forget those other positions. As Judge Meadows pointed out, her numbers went up. Where did those numbers go up? There were a lot more arrests made. There were some other comments made earlier, and I'm not a budget person per se, but I've been here a few years now, longer than any of the commission, and that were presented. I'd like to just clarify a few things. When it's talked about the sheriff's office and the amount of money that's gone through and the costs have gone up, please remember those contracts that were negotiated. The sheriff does not negotiate those contracts. Those contracts are by the Board of County Commissioners, not by the sheriff. I don't negotiate the contracts with the deputies as those go up. We were here because of a jail outsourcing problem. We didn't have enough room to put people in jail. Our theory was years ago, if I had some people at the north end to work, which you've heard about, and we had space to put people in jail to hold people accountable, the theory would be that crime rate would come down. Our crime rate has come down in many, many areas since 2009. That jail project took 3 years. It should have taken a number of months, so we had to outsource. Those contracts were in fact signed by the commission. It wasn't just the sheriff, very aware of. I believe that predictable is preventable. If people don't think our numbers are correct, I've offered for years to have somebody come in and do a forensic analysis of our budget. That may be going to be done by another organization at this point. The other topic came up about the cost and forming a citizens group. There was a citizens group formed by the County Commission in 2014, the Mason County Safety and Criminal Justice Task Force. In that, the question was asked, the task force agreed, was asked a question, does Mason County spend enough on criminal justice services? The answer from that task force that was formed by the commission is the task force agreed that not enough resources are spent on criminal justice services in Mason County. Mason County is at the bottom of its comparables in the provision of public safety and criminal justice services. That's not just the sheriff's office. That's from the line person all the way through the court system, including defense counsel and the prosecutor's office. You can refer to that letter from them back. The other piece that I wanted to bring up is last week there was some banter about where to cut in the sheriff's office. There was an opinion made by another elected official as to where that's at. You can get online, you can read all of these. I was part of contributed to a lawsuit out of Thurston County. It was Kimball versus Thurston County, in which the commission suggested to the sheriff who he would cut and where he would cut. The forgetfulness in that is that the commission does not run the sheriff's office, nor do they run any of the other elected officials' office. In Sheriff Kimball's case, there was an opinion in the paper just given to me. Sheriff Kimball is an independently elected official, and as such, neither is employed nor does he report directly to the commissioners. How he administratively chooses to structure his office is his decision. The problem is that the county continues to adopt the same budgets the ways 30 years ago. That's what happened in 2009 there. That opinion finally came through, and the decision was made that, yes, in fact, the sheriff does run their own office, and it's not to be commented on or not to be directed by another elected official as to who to cut or how to run the office. I hope that will be respected for all of the elected officials in Mason County.
Sure.
Good time. There's a lot more to be said. I think most people covered it today. I'm deeply apologetic, especially the next budget, if we can't cover you because we don't have the folks. And I hope that you think carefully about that and remember as these young folks come out there, and they're on their own, but they are on their own, and probably going to need your assistance. Thank you so much, and please don't forget those other members of the departments and the elected officials that lost their jobs this last week. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens wishing to make comment? Yeah, I see my mouth.
I knew I was going to have to follow Casey. Karen Herr, Mason County Auditor. Well, it's unfortunate because I've been down this road before. When I was first elected auditor 10 years ago, I had 16 employees who worked within my 4 departments, which is recording, licensing, financial services, and elections. I currently have 11 and a half-time employee. The slow drip of the reduction of staffing in my office was a direct result of staying within my budget that was given to me every year. I absorbed all of my unanticipated expenses that came my way without asking for additional funding. And I followed your guidelines each and every year for each budget, and that is where it's got me. So I can't imagine to even begin to list the consequences, what an additional 17.5% reduction would do to my budget, and how I can continue to provide mandated services that I am required by law to provide. I support what has been said in all the previous comments today. A $2 million shortfall this year and a projected $4 million shortfall next year is too significant to solve on the backs of the elected officials and a few of the departments. So I'm here. There are other methods you can use to address this budget shortfall, and that is what I'm here to advocate for. A levy lid-lift, a levy shift, or a proposed for a public safety tax dedicated to criminal justice, or any combination thereof. Please do your homework. Pick one of those. Make a decision. Pick the one that's best for Mason County. But you've got to do it this year. Don't kick the can down the road, because it has to be on the ballot in this November. Otherwise, it wouldn't even take effect for a couple years. I've heard you express that it may be too late to get a resolution on the ballot. You have 2 weeks from today to get a resolution to my office. If it's your priority, you can do it. I've heard you express concern that there might not be enough time to make your case with the public and have that public dialogue about the measure that you put on the ballot. Here we all are. We're making the case for you. The public is here, the elected officials are here, the media is here. You've got the citizens' attention. So I urge you to put it on the ballot this year. In closing, ironically this morning, I just wanted to share something that I read online about a county south of us that was going through, struggling with balancing their own budget. These are the headlines. Commissioners consider all options in balancing the 2018 budget. Options include cutting non-mandated programs, a levy shift, a possible public safety tax to help support law enforcement, reassessing health care benefits, providing less funding to organizations outside county government, et cetera, and it was noted. Staffing reductions and cutting mandated service to the citizens should always be the last resort. In my opinion, they got it right. So please, consider the other options before decimating the elected officials' departments and the services we provide.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Steve Andruski, citizen of Mason County, and I want to thank you, commissioners, for giving us this opportunity to speak. I guess I've listened since the beginning, and one thing I want to touch on is the fact that if we lose not only the officers that we're looking at, but even our staffing, we have some amazing people in this community. I want to say that a lot of them have their hearts in their jobs. It's not just for the resources, obviously, because I believe that our stats, as far as when it comes to what we have for employment and their wages, is pretty much lower than the standard out beyond this community. So I just could see these officers leaving this community and going elsewhere and doing just fine. So I want us to consider that issue, not only the officers, but also our other staffing. The second part I want to say is that I'm, as a citizen, we just passed a huge $60-something million bond for our school districts. We needed new schools. I want to say that as a citizen, I would pay to keep our county up and running. I mean, it may not be popular for saying this, but if we're in this situation and we need to get up to that level again, even with our tax base, we have to do that. And I think the citizens of this community understand that. So I'm speaking on my own behalf, but as a citizen, that is the role we may have to take. And let's do what we have to do to keep our county what it needs to be. And that's all I want to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others wishing?
Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning.
Lisa Frazier, Mason County Treasurer. And, you know, we are here probably because as chair of the Finance Committee and seeing this can get kicked down the road and kicked down the road and conversations about budget just really going nowhere for the first 6 months of this year. You know, it was to the point that something had to be said and something had to be done. And we're already into a 2018 budget cycle. There was not enough time to make informed decisions and into the departments and the elected officials on those cuts. It really hurts. But I'm the one that manages the money for this county. And when you have $150,000 and you have a $2 million payroll coming up and there's no money to pay it, you're screaming. You're yelling. You're waiting for somebody to take action and do something. And that's what I want this board to do. They need to take action. The revenues that we have now do not support the expenses that this county has, and you can't continue to cut employees. Nobody wants to come to the treasurer's office and pay their property taxes. It is cyclical. Right now we're in a real property boom where we're seeing a lot of real estate transactions come in, and those come to the treasurer's office. I have 3 staff people, 2 that are only part-time as a cashier and 1 full-time cashier, and they are just worked to the max. The only way I made your budget cuts this year is because I knew they were coming, and I purposely did not fill a position full-time. So I was able to let that go. However, I currently had a person resign, and therefore was able to meet your mandate. I can't cut anybody else in the 2018 budget. My office will not function. If it does not function, the county does not function. So it's important to make informed decisions, but we need to make them quickly and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional, please?
I'm Teresa Eric. I've lived in Mason County for 32 years, and I'm proud to be part of the sheriff's team. But before that, for 5 years, I did the finance manager and the budget manager's job. Yes, in 2009, we did have $200,000 to do a $1.5 million payroll, and we had a financial crisis because the whole economy was crashing. That no longer is the case. Mason County is growing, and we do have not as growing as some other counties, but we have a lot of opportunities that I think that we could plan for. We also, as Undersheriff took my phrase, predictable is preventable, because in 2013, when we did a 4-year CBA, the sheriff does not bargain the deputy's contract of 4 years, 50 people, 54, and he does not bargain the woodworker's contract of 50, but he has to pay those out of his budget. And that contract was negotiated in 13. And every year, the county has the opportunity to pass tax levies for the road and the general fund. And it is unfortunate, I'm not speaking for the sheriff's office alone, I'm speaking for all the county elected officials and departments that are trying to do their job. This assessor's never going to bring any money in. She does her work to get the taxes. The treasurer brings all the money in. She gets to keep it all. We are never going to be, the county is not set up to bring in the money by department. There's a way they bring in money, and some departments spend money and provide the services for the citizens. But we should prioritize. And we should, I've done this enough time, and I know that when I was putting all the budgets for the departments in, I know exactly what they spend and where they spend it and how much they need. That we don't plan for by having priorities of the citizens and goals and objectives, and make sure that those things are taken care of. And every year before the budget's passed, the tax resolutions are passed by the commissioners. And they can pass those tax levies to appropriately fund. There's 57 people and 12 million fund balance in roads at the end of last year, and 5 million for 263 in the general fund. There were many years we didn't take bank capacity. There were only 1 year we did a levy shift, and yes, we did increase and there's a lot of misinformation, unfortunately. I feel really bad for the citizens because I worked with the League of Women Voters for quite a long time, and they got an award for our work on the budget, on understanding the county budget. that it isn't a complex thing, and you can't make it really simple, unfortunately, but it isn't as complex as you have certain things you have to do, mandated services, you have certain functions that you have to accomplish, and you have a certain amount of money to work with. So when bargaining agreements are done, or even our health benefits, those are things that are also managed by the commission. And I know that in the private sector, for the 23 years before I got here 16 years ago, the average your deferred benefits is 15%. It's about 30 here, and it isn't anything the elected officials can control. But I am so sad to see at this point in time, and yes, like Karen was saying, that was pretty tough times when we were trying to get through that 10 years ago, and we borrowed $2 million from the ER&R fund, and we worked really hard to get that paid back by October so we didn't have to pay any more interest. And we never thought we'd have to go through that again. We never thought, I'm surprised. And I am so grateful for the wonderful people we have as deputies and corrections deputies and all our support staff. They work so hard, and we have such great people. We got people that are community. We don't have this constant thing I first saw 4 years ago when I got the deputy sheriff's office, where people were coming, and as soon as they got through the academy, they were gone and off to another county. We have people that live here that really want to stay here and care about the community. They're not paid as much as they would be someplace else, but because they do care, they're here. And I would like to retain that, because as the gentleman spoke, or several people did, it is a huge investment the citizens have made. And it isn't just a matter of us not having them anymore and getting them right back. That doesn't work like that. We have also positions we've had open for years. There are not any new ones that we're trying to fill. So I really, really implore the commission to look at all options and try to prioritize. And yes, we have a large operation. I know we have 110 people, which is, most departments have 8 to 10 or 6. So it sounds like always the sheriff is gobbling up all the resources. That's not the case. We've done a lot of efficiencies. The chiefs have worked really hard in doing things differently to try to make efficiencies. In the time I've been there, I just can't believe some of the things that they've done. And so they have done really well with what they've been given. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
And I look forward to any help that you may need. So,
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any additional comment?
Morning, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, everyone that's in here. I'm Patrick Lopez, Mason County Deputy Corrections, over at the jail there. Back in 2008, I was the first deputy to get laid off since 1989. I tell you what, my son went through a massive surgery, stenosis, I'm sorry. Those of you that know what that is, you know it's a huge procedure. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. When I got laid off, I had no idea what I was going to do, what my family was going to do. We're all a family here, right? It was like a giant barbecue with no food. Family members fight, okay? But you know what? Hurt emotions, we got to get over it. We got to drive on. We got to do what's best for this community, right? For our community. So we need to get together as a community, shake hands, hug, do whatever we need to do, set aside our differences and do what's better for our community. I don't know what that is, but that's not why I get paid the big bucks, right? So all of our trust, all of my family's trust has been put in place in part to you folks, and I appreciate it. I really do, and the community members do as well, and we need to remember that. But these kids are scared. They'll never tell you, but they are, because I've been in their place. And you got to look at their families too. They'll get another job. They'll go to other training. But their families that are left back, they're the ones that are really suffering. Their future's at stake as well, not just the individual that's getting laid off. They've already been through an academy or two like myself, and if they're a soldier like myself, they'll drive on. But their family members that don't know where their future lies, that are stakeholders in this community, they're scared, And it's time we get together and put their fears to rest and do the right thing. It's not always the easiest thing, but we got to do the right thing. And before I leave, I'd like to shake every one of your hands and tell you thank you personally for the hard job that you guys do. From the bottom of my heart, for me and my family, I thank you. Can I do that?
Please, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all have a blessed day. Thank you.
Too. Okay, any additional comment from the public? Anyone else? Okay, hearing, is there anybody else out there? Okay. Hearing no additional people coming forward to make public comment, I'll now close the public comment portion of today's hearing on item 10.1. And I would then entertain a motion from the commission.
Mr. Chair, many things to say, lots of things heard. I will make a motion to get the discussion started. Mr. Chair, I would move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the following 2017 budget reductions. In the current expense fund, move that we reduce and revise not to exceed a reduction of $1,833,837. In the Public Health Fund, reductions and revisions not to exceed a reduction of $31,000. In Information Technology, reductions and revisions not to exceed a reduction of $48,900.
Okay, so you're moving,
A current expense fund reduction revisions of $1,833,837. This is $210,142 less reductions than were originally requested by the Board of County Commissioners. I'd be happy to go through that. You had asked for a motion, so I made that motion.
Sure.
I'll second it, and I'd love to hear if you...
Sure, so it's been moved and seconded that the commission adopt a current expense reduction of $1,833,837 from the, and then from the current expense fund, the health transfer fund of $31,000 and from the the information technology fund not to exceed $48,900. Is there any additional discussion at this time?
Yes, so I first of all want to thank the Washington State University Extension Program for providing $20,941 worth of cuts. Our assessor's office for submitting $97,849 worth of cuts. Our auditor's office, $101,491 worth of cuts. This is a mid-year cut. That was the full amount requested, and I certainly appreciate them stepping up to the plate as they have year after year after year. I thank the support services staff and managers for forwarding $360,176 worth of cuts, $41,624 over the amount requested. I thank the clerk's office for forwarding $43,876 in cuts. They also offered revenue increases of $22,950, which balances out the remainder of what they didn't cut based on request. The district court offered $11,355 worth of cuts, meaning there were $47,106 they could not cut. Our courts are mandated services that we have to provide. Our district court has been short-staffed for a long, long time. And I know you can't do more. and I know you have new staff, and I just can't see you try to take away one more staff member with the loads of work you have and the increased number of trials you've had and cases that you're dealing with. Those folks are on the front line, definitely too. Nobody wants to pay their bill. Nobody wants to have to deal with the things that they're having to deal with, and I thank you very much. Our prosecutor's office forwarded $89,239 worth of cuts, with the remaining $26,953 that they couldn't find in their budget. Again, that's part of our court system. So many of those cases, they do not have a choice of whether or not they can take. They have to take them. Our coroner offered $14,069 worth of cuts, of which $8,614 they couldn't make any more cuts. This is another essential service of our county that we have to support. Our sheriff's office offered $717,172 in cuts, with the remaining $56,365 they could not find in their budget. I included that $56,365 in my requested cuts of the current expense budget, with the oath that by November, if there is an opportunity to be able to supplement the budget by that amount, I would vote yes on it. Thank you very much for that hard work to come up with that number. It was a big number, and it's a lot of people. Our Indigent Defense Department, I would like to recommend in the future that $41,624 in additional cuts found in support services be applied towards the $62,696 worth of cuts they could not make. Again, an essential service, mandated by our state constitution, and, by the way, not funded at all by the state. All on your own tax dollars. I believe we'll be able to find an additional money to be able, out of some other savings, that we'll be able to backfill the amount that we can't make in the cut right now, because we have new management there that's doing tremendous work. Our prosecutor's office is potentially considering a change in how one particular crime is being prosecuted, and I think that'll show us additional savings. And our Superior Court offered $54,000 in cuts and couldn't find $12,800 in worth of cuts. This is under the hope that we don't have extraordinary murder expenses. Those are the cuts I am making the motion on, with the commitment to the Sheriff's Office for $56,365, and my sincere appreciation to all of you for trying to help us make this budget, us to get through March 15th, 2018 is the whole reason we're doing this. You heard our treasurer say we had $150,000 in the bank early March. We can't let that happen again. I commit to the citizens of Mason County to support a revenue increase. I heard two resounding themes: don't make the cuts to our sheriff's office, and I'm willing to pay more taxes. That's what I heard, and we'll definitely support and propose that in November there'll be some form of tax increase question to the people of Mason County. Are you willing to suffer through the type of reductions in services that you've heard about today? Or are you willing to go ahead and tax yourselves and myself more money to be able to provide that level of service that we expect and hope for? And those are my comments regarding my motion.
Commissioner, just one point of clarification. Are you proposing to accept the amount offered by the sheriff's office of $717,172?
I apologize, no, I'm not.
Okay.
But I am committing that $56,365, which was the difference between what was requested and what was offered, that if we find it available, we have anticipated above forecasted sales tax revenues that could be supplementing their budget by November, if still needed by the sheriff's office.
Okay, Commissioner?
I'm still looking confused. What's the exact dollar amount on the sheriff's?
$898,384.
$898. Okay. With the promise that if we find any other revenue, that, okay.
Okay. Commissioner?
There's a lot of things to add. One shame is we're supposed to be in Olympia trying to find money for some other things we're doing on. There was a lot of conversation about the roads and the road department and their monies. I went down to Olympia and was talking to them, trying to find any way of utilizing more of that money to be able to move it sideways, because Herb is correct, there is some bank capacity there. Problem is, we can't just give it to them and then move it easily over to anything. The only thing we can do is use some of those monies for the road diversion fund for the sheriff's department, of which we're already at 1.5 million, and they don't see it likely to use any more. If there is, it's not going to be much more. The larger diversion or levy shift, so to speak, to take money from the road fund and put it over to the general fund is not as easy as it looks, either because the city is at their cap, which means that unless they decide to give permission for us to be able to do it forever, that's not going to happen either, because it does impact them and their overall budget. They'd have to dry up their parks district, so to speak, and I'm not so sure that they'd be interested in doing that, but of course we'll have the conversations. Many different things that came up. The idea of having a citizens committee again so we can speak about some of the different things we're looking at for funding is not a bad idea. I like the idea of it, but at the same time, we are backed up with what we can and cannot do. I wish it was as simple as we could just decide that we don't want to fund this or we do want to fund that. As you've heard today, every single department has a mandate, it seems, by the state demanding that this be done or that be done, and they're all right. They're all true. The problem is we are actually an arm of the state. We are not a municipal corporation like a city or anything else. We actually are the arm of the state, and we do whatever they tell us to do. Whether they fund it or not makes absolutely no difference. As you heard the comments about the Public Defender's Office, we have to pay those. It's not something that we actually have a choice on. I want to remind everybody, when you have the Sheriff's Department and they catch them, then we have to keep them. Then you have to try them. Now they have a prosecuting attorney's office, but then you have the judge's office and all the paperwork. Then we also have to defend them, and then we have to house them. It continues on and on, whether it's juvenile detentions or what, but it's not as easy as we just let everybody go and we just put all the money over to the sheriff's department. If it was that easy, we wouldn't be in the situation we are, because I was looking over all the minutes lately trying to figure out where the softest parts are, and the truth is, to my apology to all the other departments, we went very heavy in investing in the sheriff's department and on the backs of these other departments. As you heard, you have the auditor's office, which is down to 9 from 11, not up like we have done with some of the other departments. You know, since I came in, we added 8 new additional deputies to the sheriff's department, 5 new correctional officers. There's so many different things that we've done, and the votes are there. It's all on the paper. But the truth of the matter is, everything we've done costs more money. Now, we get 1% a year that we get to raise our funds. We don't have just carte blanche to raise taxes however we want. We're arm of the state. They give us 1%. What that means is between $80,000 and $88,000 every year that we increase our budget. I know you guys have all had big tax increases, but more than that, that's been your school districts, your fire districts and stuff. But the county and even the state is raising it largely this year, but the county gets their 1%. What that means is you take $88,000, but then you look at the cost of living for everybody that goes up 3 to 5%. You're looking at about $1.5 to $3 million extra every year that it costs to do business. So we're offsetting that every year with our $88,000, but the cost of doing business is $1.5 million. And even if we lay people off, you've still got all the rest of the county that you have to pay for. And that cost goes up and up and up. There's nothing more that we can do. If we could have, we probably would have already done it. There was talk of raising taxes or bringing that out to the public last year, but we did not act on it, and I think we should have. I also think that we have no choice but to look at doing it this year. Because the truth is, you think these are bad cuts? Next year, it's going to be more than twice this amount if we don't do something about it this year. And I don't know how anybody's going to survive that. As it stands now, you're going to be able to do this without laying off deputies. If we don't do something this year, you're not going to have that option next year. We'll be laying off deputies because there's no way around it. We'll be laying off, the district court won't even be able to function. We are at that point of collapse if we don't do something about it. So I will be speaking in favor of this, moving it forward. And again, I want to give special thanks to those who gave us everything off the bat that we had asked for. And I don't know how we're going to make it up to you, because I know there are a few of the departments that still will not be asked to give their full, but the assessor's office, the auditor's office, the treasurer's office, Washington State University. As always, you stepped up and did whatever was necessary as an organization to keep this county going. Somehow we've got to make that up to you.
Very good, thank you. So I'm going to make a few brief remarks. I have some notes here, so forgive me if I appear to be looking down too much. I want to make sure that I say exactly what I intend to say. I do want to begin by first thanking everybody for coming out this morning. It's an incredible show of support, not just for one part of our county government, but for the essential services that are provided throughout county government. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention the amazing staff that works for the county. I've only been here for 7 months, and I have come to know that the people that we have working for the county are truly good people that are well-intentioned, that come to work every day, who are asked to do a lot with a little, and whatever small amount of success any of the elected officials can claim here in Mason County, I would imagine to a person they would all say it's due in large part to the staff that works for them. And so my many thanks to everybody that come to work for Mason County every day. I know these past few weeks have been very difficult. It's been difficult for the people of Mason County, the people that live here, that call it home. It's been very difficult for the staff of Mason County that come to work every day. And it's been very difficult for all the elected officials and department heads who we've asked to dig deep and make cuts that are very challenging, especially at this late day in the year. And so I'm grateful for everybody's efforts over these past few weeks. There's going to be a long conversation, I think, in this county for a lot of time to determine how exactly we ended up in this position. They're the right questions to ask, because I hope that at the core of those questions are, how do we avoid repeating history? And so we can sit around and we can talk about whose fault it is and how we ended up here, but there simply is not the time. We need to be solutions-oriented and focused on what we do from here. When we looked at all of these issues in front of us, I looked at them first as a taxpayer and a voter, and it's a very disappointing situation that we find ourselves in. And I know that that's a sentiment shared by a lot of people, and I've heard from so many people in this past week that share that disappointment and that share that frustration. And I can tell you that we're here and we're ready to work to fix it. I think as we look for these solutions, we have to recognize that we face serious long-term budget issues if we do nothing. And to that end, I've come forward with a proposal to move to a 2-year budget that is in the works, and I appreciate the support that I've received from my fellow commissioners on that. It is a big course change for Mason County to move to a different way of thinking when it comes to the budget, and to expand out that timeline that we look at when it comes to funding the programs and services that we offer in Mason County. Further, I'm encouraging the Commission to have a discussion about adopting a balanced budget resolution. This would basically say that we don't spend more than we take in, that we respect what a reserve and emergency funding is for, and that we have a serious conversation within that about how we fund the services and programs that we provide in Mason County. There's a lot of talk about what the priorities of the commission is, where the county is heading, and I can tell you right now that the days of reserve fund balance being used to supplement ongoing expenses are done. We simply can't manage that way anymore. And so to that end, I encourage the commission to come together and have a conversation about the revenue that we collect, how much of it we collect, how much the people in this county are willing to pay for the services that we are mandated in many cases to provide, and that we have that conversation centered around fiscal responsibility and living within our means. Finally, no one is going to walk out of this room a winner today. But that's not the end of this story. The decisions before us are difficult. That's why we're here, and I hope that's why we chose to run for the positions that we ran for, because we wanted to make the hard decisions, because we wanted to have an impact on the future of our county. And I hope we take this as an opportunity to regroup and reevaluate our role, each of our roles, in strengthening Mason County's future. And I hope we can find enough goodwill as we walk out of this room today to begin the 2018 budget process in earnest. Because I think we have to begin that process from a position of good faith and without assuming bad intent about everybody's motives and how we got here and where we plan to go from here. So with that, that's a long way of saying that I intend to not vote in support of the motion brought forward to us today. And I say that because I would prefer to accept the proposals that were brought forward by the various offices and departments, fully recognizing, once again, that some departments were able to bear the full burden and others were not. And oftentimes, it appears in government that we punish the people who do the things the right way. Unfortunately, when you make cuts in the middle of July, very late in a budget year, sometimes you have to be willing to compromise and accept what people bring forward with the hope that we can enact other reforms and have other conversations about how we budget and finance for Mason County's future. And so my call to everybody here today is when we go through this vote, that we use this as an opportunity to move forward together in a more productive way, and that we work collaboratively to focus on 2018 and beyond. And so with that, I will end my comments, and I appreciate everybody being so patient as we work through this process today. And I hope that this is not the end of the conversation, rather this is the beginning of a new one. And so with that, I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. And the motion carries. And with that, we'll move on to item 10.2.
You take a break, please. We have the coach will miss you.
Okay. So we will take a brief recess for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And come back.
So you would have supported what?
We'll go back into session now. We can clear the, thank you. Okay, we'll be moving next to item 10.2, a public hearing to adopt an ordinance amending Mason County Code Section 14.22, Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance. And I would ask staff to please brief.
Good morning, Commissioners. I wanted to let you know that we heard this ordinance last night at the Planning Commission and took comments there as well. So Mason County adopted the Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance in 1988 for the purpose of ensuring that we take flood hazards into account in all land use actions for public safety. In addition to public safety, the Mason County Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance meets federal requirements necessary for the county and county residents to receive flood insurance through the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. FEMA provides the data and maps that these flood hazard areas are based on in Mason County, and they also provide this information for the other cities and counties across the country. They've published a new flood study for Mason County that provides some revisions to the flood zones throughout our county. FEMA's made use of new technology and new survey methods to update the original 1988 information that we've relied on until now. The ordinance before you today amends the county's flood damage prevention ordinance to comply with new federal requirements by adding 2 new flood zones established by FEMA, One is the coastal high hazard areas, and the second is the shallow flooding areas. The ordinance also strikes a section of the Mason County Code that FEMA no longer allows, and that's the section that has permitted some development in flood hazard zones under certain circumstances in the past. Go ahead.
Could you explain that one more time?
So there is a clause in here called the reasonable use
Okay, that's what I
exception,
thought you meant.
right,
Okay.
and that has been completely stricken from the code. The amendments that you're looking at today, that you're hearing today, have been reviewed and approved by FEMA, and as I mentioned, the PAC Planning Commission heard them last night and passed them forward, recommended they be passed forward to you today. We're bringing this ordinance today rather than waiting until FEMA requires action to ensure that the residents of Mason County have full 90 days that FEMA offers starting August 3rd to provide comments and corrections related to the new FEMA information. After FEMA closes that 90-day comment period, they continue to offer an appeals process, and that goes on into the future. The amendments to the flood damage prevention ordinance you're hearing today do not adopt a new FEMA map. We'll continue to use the best available data and maps that we have related to flood hazards in Mason County, including the new map and the new study. We recognize that the information we have about flood hazards in our county will continue to improve, and the county and FEMA both have limited ability to collect the precise survey data for the entire county. The ordinance you're hearing today proposes to continue to use the best available science related to flood hazards and to offer the public flexibility and opportunity for input through the formal comment and appeals processes.
Very good, thank you, Paula. Any questions for staff?
Yes, so the appeals processes you're referring to is the designation of their of a property owner or other properties.
Right.
On
So
the new maps.
we see about 50-50 right now. People who have been removed from a flood zone coming in to be grateful they don't have to get insurance, and people who are now in the flood zone and have to acquire insurance. And they have an opportunity for 90 days to provide comments, to allow FEMA to make any corrections that might be necessary. And then beyond that, they have the ability to survey their own parcels and offer that survey data to FEMA through a formal appeal process.
Okay, so that's the appeals you're referring to.
That's right.
So this particular code change we're looking at would basically help us implement those maps when and if we approve adoption of those maps.
Right. The most important section, I think we still continue to refer to the 1988 maps and amendments that were made in 98, and then we add a statement that we'll also consider any amendments which may be made hereafter by FEMA or the Federal Insurance Administration. So as we go forward and they make more changes over time, we can rely on the best available data that we have, recognizing that it will take decades to survey the entire county, and we know that changes will be ongoing.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'll open the public comment period. If you would like to make comment on item 10.2, please approach the podium, and the chair will recognize you.
I have a question.
Please.
Where can go to find feed up that internet?
On the internet?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The FEMA website, which is FEMA.org, and they have very good mapping tools now that allow you to find your exact parcel, and I'd be happy to email you, or we can post it. We have it linked to our website through the county planning.
I have up his court way. Property is 15 feet along the border.
So we, my team in the planning office would be happy to meet with you individually and talk about your concerns make sure that you get a chance to comment through the 90-day period or file appeal if you like. I have a business card I can.
Okay, so at this point, I'll open the, thank you. Anybody wishing to make comment, again, please come forward to the podium and the chair will recognize you. Hearing no public comment, I'll close the public comment portion, and I would entertain a motion and discussion from the commission.
I apologize that I wasn't attended at the work session in which we reviewed this. I guess I'm wondering, Commissioner, if you had thoughts about, does this assume that we've already, by adopting these codes, does it assume that we're adopting maps that we haven't yet been asked to adopt?
So the way I understood it, it was a part of an administrative process that recognizes this is a work in progress, and then will allow us to come back and revisit it once the maps are finalized on the federal level.
Okay. I continue to say that it's, as much as we may or may not agree with some of these FEMA's work here, to not be able to offer that insurance. And I know we're not adopting maps, but to be able to offer that insurance to our citizens, just based on a vote or a non-vote from us, is just not fair to them. I'm not going to argue. They do have the appeal process on there, so I'm going to assume. I will adopt these, or I'm going to make a recommendation to adopt these code changes so that we are more in line with FEMA and how they're assessing certain areas of the county and their new their new zones they've titled. And I'm thankful for the new information. And so I would be in favor of this, and I'd be happy to make a motion to adopt an ordinance amending the Mason County Code Section 14.22 Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance.
And I will second that motion. It's been moved and seconded to adopt an ordinance amending Mason County Code Section 14.22 Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance. Any additional discussion from the commission?
But thank you for your work to jump right back onto this. Yes.
And I would just say there was a public meeting earlier this year that was very well attended. I believe it was in Belfair?
It was in Belfair.
At the high school, right? And so it was very well attended, and again, the Planning Commission had an opportunity to vet this as well. And so with that, I appreciate all the effort from our Department of Community Development in bringing this forward. With that, I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Takes us to item 10.3, a public hearing to approve the ordinance to increase application and transfer fees for open space, timber, farm, and agriculture, and designated forest land programs to $500 each. I invite our assessor to come brief. Thank you.
I can't believe nobody stayed for this. We are proposing to increase application and transfer fees for open space, timber, farm and agriculture, and designated forest lands. The increased application fees for open space, timber, farm and agriculture, and designated forest land programs. Oh, I didn't do that right. There's a period there. Currently, the fee for a new application for each of these programs is $250, and the transfer fee, if you want to move from one program to another, is $125. This fee includes the recording fee for a notice of approval or denial of $73. This fee does not cover the actual cost to process the application. Consider the loss to the tax base by reducing the assessed value of the land if approved, nor is it comparable to the fees charged by other Washington counties for the same applications. We would like to increase the application and transfer fees all to $500. After deducting the $73 recording fee, the county would see $427 in revenue. This would cover staff costs to process the application, appraisal review, administrative review, and CAMA processing, annual review, monitoring of the timber management plans when applicable, annual income review for farm and ag, as well as bring our county fees more into line with the fees from that other counties are requiring for the same applications. So this would bring increased revenue for the assessor's office and current expense, and we would recommend to approve to increase the application and transfer fees for open space, timber, farm and agriculture, and designated forest land programs to $500 each.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission for the assessor?
No, none for me.
Okay, very good. Excuse me, at this time, I would open the public comment period. If you would like to make comment, please come forward to the podium and the chair will recognize you. Okay, seeing no public comment at this time, I'll close the public comment period, and then I would entertain a motion and discussion from the commission.
Thank you for bringing this forward.
Sure.
Appreciate the effort and looking at this. Yeah, we are very far behind.
Yeah, it's
currently, and
quite a bit of difference.
there's an assumption that the fees from the legislature that our fees should pay for the cost of doing the work, and this is a privilege to be able to apply into these special programs, and so I concur that there should the cost to process them should be somewhat recouped, although you're sharing that it does not recoup. Unfortunately, we can't do the annual review of those lands that they're still eligible. You can't charge a fee for that.
Oh, to review them, no.
Yeah. That is a privilege.
No, yeah, it's cost and personnel.
I would entertain a motion.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd move that we approve the ordinance to increase application and transfer fees for open space, timber, farm and agriculture, and designated forest land programs to $500 each.
And I will second that. It's been moved and seconded to approve the ordinance to increase application and transfer fees for open space, timber, farm, and agriculture, and designated forest land programs to $500 each. Is there any additional discussion?
No.
I would just like to offer my thanks as well. I think this is part of a process that we're going through in the county, obviously, to address some disparities in our fee structure, and in a lot of cases, these fees have not been looked at, not just in the assessor's office, but countywide, have not been looked at in a long, long time. And so this is not a revenue grab. This is a reality that the cost of services continues to rise and that we need to be competitive. And so I do appreciate all the work that your office has done on this, so thank you. At this time, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you. That takes us to item 10.4, a public hearing to consider the 2016 current use open space applications, and I would invite staff forward to brief.
So this is just the new applications that we had and transfer applications for the current use open space program. The program itself is a conservation program, and it's anything to preserve, promote, protect, enhance, wetlands, scenic areas, wildlife preserves, anything like that. That would be conservation of the land. So these are the applications. There's 5 in total. The first application, it was applied in January for 9 out of the 10 acres, and they wanted to transfer into open space from designated forest land. There is 1 acre that would remain assessed at the market value. The applicant has indicated this land qualifies by conserving or enhancing natural, cultural, or scenic resources. We also indicated it will enhance recreational opportunities. The assessor has reservations about this land being approved for the open space program. The recreational opportunities appear to be a motorcycle track. Our first concern is that, is the motorcycle track open to the public? If it's not really enhancing recreational opportunities for anyone besides the owner. Our second concern is that open space is designated to conserve the natural habitat of the land. It seems that a motorcycle track could be the direct opposite to conserving land. It rips up the ground cover and native plants and such. The assessor sees minimal benefit to the public. Application 2, they applied in February, and they were transferring 3.56 out of 4.56 acres into open space from designated forest land. They have recently removed 1 acre from designated forest land that will be continued tax at the market value. And this was done to accommodate the many recreational vehicles, gates, tents, and other activities going on the property. And there's a picture also provided on the additional pages. The assessor has concerns about allowing this property into open space. However, there could be a moderate benefit to the public by providing a stream, tree shade, and other opportunities. Okay. Application 3, they applied also in February. They applied for 10 out of 10.79 acres to be approved into the open space classification. There is a house and a large cleared area on this property consisting of approximately 1.5 acres, which should not be included in the program. The assessor has concerns about the public benefit of allowing this property into the program. The applicant has struck through the words public and educational as qualifications for his property, that his property could provide. In answer to the question, what do you feel the public will gain by preservation of your land in its current and present use? The applicant responded as, I will gain by having a park-like forest. The neighbors will gain because the parcel is being well maintained, unlike the squatters that are trashing the additional property, adjoining property, excuse me. We also have a copy of an email that indicates the applicant is doing a significant amount of thinning, limbing, cutting in roads, stump burning, plowing, and leveling. It does not sound like it's being left in its natural state.
Excuse me, do you mind tell me what parcel number that is that you just described?
Yes, it's 421-23-34-90003.
Thank you.
If this property was approved, only 9.29 acres should be authorized into the program. There appears to be minimal benefit to the public. Application number 4, they applied in July for 5 out of 5 acres to be approved into the open space classification. Because there is a house and other miscellaneous structures on this property, a minimum of 1 acre, possibly 2, should remain at the market value rather than the open space value. The applicant has indicated this land qualifies for such reasons as conserving or enhancing natural, cultural, or scenic resources, protecting streams, stream corridors, wetlands, natural shorelines or aquifers, and preserving visual quality along a highway, road, street corridors, or scenic vistas. The applicant indicates that the portions of the land is unusable for anything else due to the seasonal stream and marshy conditions. The assessor does not have any concerns approving up to 3 acres into the open space program, as this property appears to have moderate benefit to the public by protecting the stream and marshy areas. Application number 5, it was applied in November for 8.5 out of 8.5 acres to be approved into the open space classification. Because there is a home and other miscellaneous structures on this property, a minimum of 1.5 acres, possibly 2, should remain at the market value rather than the open space value. The applicant has indicated this land qualifies for such reasons as conserving or enhancing natural, cultural, or scenic resources, protecting soil resources, unique or critical wildlife habitat, or native plant habitat, and preserving visual quality along the road, highway, or street corridors. The assessor has no concerns with allowing 7 acres out of the 8.5 into the current use program. This property appears to have minimal to moderate benefit to the public.
Okay.
And that's everything.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Could you referred to the parcel that they had some pictures on it. Was that parcel the one that you stated before, 22116-30-191-013? Is that for that parcel, the pictures? Are they all the same parcel?
Photos are on page 4, 5 and 6. I
So those are
believe.
all for that part?
Yeah, those are all from that parcel.
Thank you.
And so they removed that 1 acre for those.
Okay, thank you.
So the pictures are for applicant number 2?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's pictures for all of
Oh,
them.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah. The parcel numbers are following them, the photos.
Yeah, okay. Okay, at this point, I'll open the public comment period if there are no questions for staff. Commissioner?
No more
Okay.
questions.
At this point, I'll open the public comment period. Again, if you'd like to make comment on item 10.4, please come forward. The podium and the chair will recognize you. Okay, seeing none, close the public comment portion of item 10.4, and I will move to a motion or discussion by the commission.
I'm gonna, would you prefer that I take these one by one?
Is there,
Or all at once?
what's the usual course of?
Normally, we've not had them outlined this way. They've been in one list and
Mhm.
under the 2 different programs. I'd be happy to take them one by one. if
Yeah,
you
I
like.
think that might be the
Then we can have
clearest way to,
discussion.
sure.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the assessor's recommendations on parcel number 12316-33-03000, applicant Jason Rains, that the request to put that property into open space be denied.
And I'll second that. It's been moved and seconded that parcel number 12316-33-03000, per the assessor's recommendation, be denied. Any additional discussion?
I just feel that to get a tax advantage on properties that are being used in that intensity is not the spirit of the program.
I would concur with that. Hearing no additional discussion at this time, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move that the parcel number 22116-30-91013 with the applicant Jay Lansaw and Annette Britton, the application be denied to be placed into our open space program.
And I'll second that. It's been moved and seconded that parcel number 22116-30-91013 be denied per the assessor's concerns. Hearing any additional discussion?
No.
Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I would move that Dennis Groff's parcel application for parcel 42123-34-90003 be approved to put 9.29 acres into the open space program.
I'll second that. It's been moved and seconded that parcel number 42123-34-90003 be approved to allow 9.29 acres into the current use open space program. Any additional discussion?
No.
Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move that the application submitted by Billy and Mary Jean Herbacek, parcel number 32030-32-00110, be approved to move 3 acres into the open space current use program.
I'll second that. It's been moved and seconded that parcel number 32030-32-00110 be approved to move 3 acres into the open space program. Any additional discussion?
No.
Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move that the application submitted by Terry Hogan and Patricia Tho for parcel 12019-32-04010 be approved, allowing 7 acres into the current use open space program.
I'll second that. It's been moved and seconded that parcel number 12019-32-04010 be 7 acres be approved into the current use open space program. Any additional discussion?
No.
Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, it takes us to item number 11 on our agenda this morning, afternoon now. Let the record show. And so we'll just we'll go briefly through my calendar, and then I'll let Commissioner Drexler review hers. So this afternoon, I have a Finance Committee meeting with the other commissioners to discuss the decisions made earlier today and get an update on the county's finances. Also this afternoon, we have a Mason Transit Authority meeting that all the commissioners will be attending. Tomorrow morning, Criminal Justice Working Team meeting, followed by a special meeting of the State Building Code Council, a special meeting for them as well. Then for the remainder of the week, I'll be representing the county at the Washington County Risk Pool. It's their annual meeting, and so I will be out doing that, and then back on Monday for briefings and our meeting on Tuesday evening.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's our prime time meeting.
I will also be in attendance of the Finance Committee meeting at 2 o'clock today and the Mason Transit Authority meeting. I will be attending, if my schedule stays open, the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Committee meeting they have scheduled Wednesday at 9 a.m. They have a couple items on their agenda I'm interested in. The Shelton Business Expo is on Thursday. I'll be there. And then I have a meeting of the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization. And then back here for commission briefings on Monday the 24th as well.
We'll enjoy the chamber on Expo on Thursday.
You'll miss that.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of bummed about that. That's always a fun time. So
I want to congratulate the Allen Community Association and the Allen community on a very successful and very enjoyable Allen Days, and I have my Gooey Duck for the Gooey Duck Festival. And I just wanted folks to acknowledge and recognize that that is the mascot for Allen, Washington.
frankly, one of the most appropriate looking gooey ducks I've ever seen. I might be so bold. Yeah. We got the business end of that one. So, okay. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, without apology. That was good.
Yeah, I know. I'm working on it.